Sid and Friends in the morning.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I'm Jake Novak, sitting in for Sid Rosenberg. With me, owner-operator John Catsimatidis. We'll be joined later by Judge Richard Weinberg and George Venizelos. So,
we're always inclusive. We always bring in a lot of people, and I guess me and you are doing the base operation.
Yeah, we got to warm it up for the crowd. It's Juneteenth. It's a federal holiday. The markets are closed today. For those of
you,
do
we need a black person to tell us what Juneteenth is?
It would be nice to get someone to explain.
I don't wake up David Patterson or something?
We wake up David Patterson. We could ask Dominic.
I would say if you stop the next 100 people that walk by the building, that 90 of them will not have a clue.
It would be nice if Juneteenth doesn't become like Kwanzaa, which no one can explain either. But Juneteenth, ostensibly the idea is this is to celebrate the end of slavery in the United States.
No, I thought it was to celebrate what happened in the murders that happened in Texas.
Oh, the Tulsa uprising against.
I thought that was what Juneteenth was all about.
Yeah,
do we have an expert here? Noam is supposed to be an expert in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Noam, Leighton, do you have any idea what Juneteenth is?
He's grabbing the mic.
It's celebrating the emancipation of the last slaves the last slaves to find out that they were free were in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. And it was on this day that they were finally freed, like much later than a lot of the rest of the slaves. And so
it had nothing to do with the big slaughter of people that died in Texas. This very successful black community that they went in
Tulsa,
and
in Oklahoma?
Yeah. Was it Tulsa?
They called it the Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
And
very successful people.
Well, to commemorate, not to celebrate it, but to commemorate it. But it is, look, it's interesting how, this is one of the first things that Joe Biden did when he was president. He declared this day as another new national holiday. And, no one's going to ask any questions about that or push back on that. Another day off in the summer, almost 2 days before the official beginning of summer. Why not? But it should be noted, everyone, just, again, the best thing we can do right at the top is just as a public service announcement. Markets aren't open. A lot of businesses closed, banks closed. However, oil is trading, and I wanted to talk about that with you right away because, John, you predicted this precipitous drop in oil, and here we are at $77 a barrel here.
It was 74 yesterday, but it's fluctuations. I had predicted when the Strait is open that it drops way down to about 55 to 65 again. And if it's 74 yesterday, maybe Monday, depending on how things are going. There's always people that are stirring the pot. And they ceased talking overnight or something. Overnight there is this morning, actually.
Yeah, there's a lot of developments. First of all, you have Vance not going to...
They blame Israel. Your fault.
Well, we got a situation overnight, and you heard Noam talk about it. 4 Israeli soldiers killed by Hezbollah overnight. The Israelis retaliated, hitting them in the Bekaa Valley. So let's see how we respond.
My opinion, Israel did the right thing. Not enough. If you hit me once, I'd hit you 10 times.
Yeah, and a huge part of the pushback against this deal will be gone if it becomes tacitly understood that if Israel's hit by Hezbollah, the Israelis can hit back. If that's what the administration is going to tell them either openly or quietly, that'll be fine with Israel.
But make sure Israel hits back double.
Yeah, well, that would be good, too.
Double coupon's always good.
Yeah, well, speaking of coupons, we talk too much about oil, not enough about gasoline. We're now at $3.97 according to AAA national average.
Go lower.
It will go lower.
It will go lower.
56 cents lower than the national average a month ago today, and I think very notably, now less than $1 more than it was on day one of the war. Day one of the war, we were at $2.98 national average, so we're at $3.97 now. Obviously another buck, but not quite a buck, and that's good.
We had a slugfest last night at 5 o'clock on the 5 o'clock show, and we even play some of it back, and we even had Mark Levin call in. And the fact is that, look, Trump has to do what he has to do you got to bring down the price of gasoline. You got November coming up. You got to bring down the price of gasoline, and you have to bring down the price of interest rates. Now, I think the new Fed chairman I don't think he's wavering, but he's just sidestepping a little bit. But it goes back to when oil comes. The only reason some of the people were saying, inflation, the numbers are up. It's a temporary thing. It was a temporary 90-day war. So when the war goes away, inflation goes away, interest rates have to come down. So if you go into November with low interest rates and $2.50, $2.75 gasoline, then I think our country's going in great shape.
Well, we've had 29 straight days of the national average for gasoline going down. And that's the longest in almost 3 years, the longest streak in almost 3 years. It would be nice, again, if we saw... but John, what would you say is... I mean, you were putting a target at the high $2, close to $3, but a two handle.
I think it'll be a two handle, but it'll be below 3.
Okay. And that would be that would be psychologically. These numbers are very psychological. Like with mortgage rates, I say the day that we did briefly earlier this year. I say the day we get to 5.9999% on mortgages, there's going to be a big run for buyers. Even though
I think it'll go lower.
Yeah, well, I hope so. We had.
I think the new Fed chairman is committed to reduce interest rates, and I really don't know what violin Powell was playing. Obviously, I mean, he was a nominee of President Trump 45, but he was, how can you say it, Bidenized? Can you say Bidenized?
Yeah, I mean, how in the world he lowered interest rates in November of 2024 and before that, when the inflation numbers were much worse than they are now. And that was the problem with him. And, to say that he was bullied by Trump, but he never justified those cuts for Biden. And it just doesn't make any sense. Plus, he's staying on the board, which is a really cheap move by him.
Powell was all politics.
Yeah.
And the Fed chairman should not have politics. And look, I look forward. I think the economy of 2026 will be the best ever. The Dow Jones average has hit 52,000 already. I was the first one to predict 50,000 for December 31, 2025. And that was when the Dow Jones was, I think they were having a bad summer. I don't know what it was down to, 32, 33, 34, whatever. And my prediction for December 31, 26 is 60,000.
Wow. Okay, mark that down. 60,000 on the Dow. Jobs also. We didn't mention jobs. The jobs numbers, that last jobs report was very good. We were all accepting a no hire, no fire type job situation, and it turns out we were settling too low. The job situation is very good, much better than expected. I hear Larry Kudlow on some of the messages he's been putting out on the station, talking about the strength of the economy, just as you have. Where we were told the AI thing is going to kill everybody's job. We were told the tariffs are going to kill everybody's job. It hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened at all. There are people out there that are they want to do anything that's possible. Now, I said this to a few high-ups in people at Fox, and I told the president this, that what's going on is, let's take Newark, New Jersey. Are they still picketing there? I mean, I don't even know anymore.
Here and there, but you know what? It's such a good. It's so good that you asked that question, because without the media coverage, nobody knows. And the media absolutely plays it. You said this on on the Katz and Cosby thing a couple of weeks ago. Without the media coverage, it takes all the oxygen out of them.
100%. And what I also said, and I want all the people to listen to this, that there's people putting on a show, a play, an orchestra. And what they're doing is they're paying these characters. Of all the people that got arrested in Newark, New Jersey, all the people that got arrested, only one was from New Jersey. The rest of them from all over the place. And what does that mean? That means they're paid political, whatever you want to call them. And the fact is that they spend, whoever's spending the money to put on that play, they're spending $50,000, $100,000, $200,000. But when the media gives them the publicity, they get millions of dollars of publicity. You can't buy that publicity that the media is giving them. Oh, look at these people. They're attacking ICE. You can't buy it. Millions and millions of dollars. And look at their return on investment. They don't have to advertise. They don't have to do anything else. They create the rioters. They create the play. Act 1, Scene 1. And the next day, Scene 2, Scene 3. And they're paid political, whatever you want to call them, terrorists. And when the media covers them, it goes viral. Oh, my God, look at this. They're attacking ICE. And the governor of New Jersey, I was shocked. She wouldn't allow the police officers or the state troopers to come in and help ICE.
Yeah, she's part of it.
How can you do that?
She's part of the performance. She and the mayor of Newark, Nasparaka, kept going back and forth about whether he was going to allow the cops to do something about it. I mean, it's so weird because if you're a Gen Xer like myself, and I started following all this as a 10-year-old, a little bit abnormal in that way, I grew up in a country where local officials couldn't wait for the feds to come take care of their problems for them. Now, the feds are saying, "Hey, we'll take your criminal overhead. We'll take care of this," and they don't want it. They're like, "No. Well, not only will we keep paying for these people, whether they're incarcerated or not, but we'll give them gift cards. We'll give them. I mean, this is suicidal politics. And if it's for performance theater, that's one thing. And John, another one of the problems is there's no shortage of people they can hire to be the performance demonstration terrorists.
They get paid in cash.
Yeah, and
that means
you know who they are.
No taxes.
Yeah, we got all these liberal arts grads from colleges who can choose between working at Starbucks or going to the rally at Newark and having some fun and throwing bricks at people.
And I understand the standard fee for the group leaders is $1,000 cash. Some of them, the group leaders, get $2,000 in cash, and the individual picketers that just go there and yell and scream is $200 cash.
And we found out that
you have to work at Starbucks at $20 an hour. It takes 10 hours of work, a lot of coffees to fill to get $200 in cash.
Right. There's an endless amount of labor supply for this stuff. And it's not just American funders. Remember, we found out that the woman who was running the anti-Israel protests in Times Square from after October 7th for years later is the daughter of some kind of Chinese politician, and who was also being paid for this. It's there's a lot of kids out there, young people without a purpose. It reminds me of getting that debate up again about bringing back the draft. Doesn't have to be for the military, but we got a lot of young people in this country with no purpose and no direction. And it was only a matter of time before someone took advantage of that. Other story this morning that we might want to get to really soon. Do we have to take a break yet, or we got a couple of minutes? But let's tease it a little bit.
Somebody, the control booth set up a thread file on our text, so we know what's going on in the control booth, et cetera, et cetera.
But let's let the audience know we're going to talk about this after the break. John, Tulsi Gabbard, on her last day in office, releases a bunch of files that are very damning for Dr. Fauci, very damning for him, and for the people who covered up for him. And you'll hear what she had to say about that. She leaves with a bang. And again, it's about this gain-of-function stuff that Fauci helped organize and helped use taxpayer money to fund. And this is where COVID came from. I don't think anyone is claiming anymore that it came from a wet market in Wuhan.
Well, I mean, we got to talk about that because it's worse than that, I think.
Yeah.
And by the way, Governor Pataki's son is in Ukraine, and guess what? I think they're going to be calling in.
Oh, excellent!
About 6:45, Governor Pataki's son, Owen Pataki, and what are they doing in the Ukraine? Well, we got the soccer games going on here. He's got football games going on there.
Oh, it's a quid pro quo. All right, we're going to take a break. I'm Jake Novak with John Catsimatidis, filling in for Sid and Friends this morning. Stay with us.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
WABC Traffic and Transit.
Well, from the Apple Bank Traffic Desk, as you begin to travel northbound on the Garden State Parkway and the Jersey Turnpike and all that, in central New Jersey, you're looking pretty good all the way on up. Really no major difficulties as you come inbound Lincoln, Hall, and George, all three with only minor delays. There are some delays, though, as you head inbound on the Pulaski Skyway getting into the Holland Tunnel. That's pretty much nothing out of the ordinary, so you're going to have that, but it's nowhere near as bad as it usually is. Coming inbound on the Gowanus BQE, you are heavy through the trench, and then not too bad getting to the Brooklyn Bridge. A lot of heavy traffic as you come up to the LIE on the inbound side of the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, and likewise on the BQE southbound coming down to the Kosciuszko. But all in all, the LIE is way better than it usually is. Same thing down on the Belt Parkway. We're looking pretty good at mass transit at this point. New Jersey Transit, Long Island Railroad, Metro North, all on or close to schedule. Long Island Railroad, though, extra service to get you out to the U.S. Open. Traffic is sponsored by Apple Bank. With the Apple Bank Pick Your Term CD, you get a guaranteed rate of return that fits your 6 to 12-month timeline. Stop by an Apple Bank branch today. Member FDIC, $25,000 minimum deposit required to open. New money only. Early withdrawal penalty may apply. I'm Joe Nolan with traffic on Talk Radio 77 WABC.
This is Sid and Friends in the Morning.
Entertaining and informative.
Oh, you're my best friend.
77 WABC.
Hello again. Here's my best to you. Are your skies all gray?
Oh, my God. Herb Oscar Anderson. One of the best morning shows ever on WABC about 100 years ago. It seems like 100 years ago when I was growing up. And Herb Oscar Anderson, his daughter wants to do a play, and his wife came to the gala last year. And his daughter and his wife came to the WABC gala last year.
Did she want to do a play about her father or
yeah,
about radio in New York?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that would be a great. That'd be great.
And look, why not? I mean, New York. I mean, it's the greatest city in the world, and we're not giving it up.
No, and
I mean, the heck with them. It just
we can't.
And look, everybody plays the violin to their own audience, and the mayor plays his violin to his supporters. I mean, but that's natural. I mean, Curtis Sliwa used to play his violin. He used to go only to places that liked him.
Yeah.
And, he didn't go anyplace else.
Well, the mayor played a long violin solo yesterday, the longest speech of anyone at that Knicks parade and at the celebration at City Hall.
And he gave away the keys to the city?
Gave away keys to the city to everyone and everyone. He famously couldn't name one Knick player during his election last year, during one of the debates. He sort of mumbled the name of the coach. He couldn't name one, so he made up for it. He tried to make up for it yesterday by naming not only all the current Knick players, but famous Knick players from 50 years ago,
now,
too.
There was only about 1 million people there yesterday. And when I was at the Police Athletic League legal lunch on Tuesday, everybody was worried. Oh, there might be 1 million, there might be 2 million, there might be 3 million. Where do these numbers come from?
Yeah, I think people forgot that school was still open yesterday, and the New York City public schools aren't finished for the year, so that was a big reason why people stayed away. It was large crowds. I mean, and it seemed to look. There were some arrests. Noam reported on that in the last hour. It wasn't completely peaceful, but I'm relieved. I'm relieved that it wasn't worse. Maybe they should play these NBA games during the day, because I don't know if we would have had those riots after the games if they had been day games, but that's another logistical thing. Now, we teased before the break this revelation by Tulsi Gabbard on our last day of Director of National Intelligence. Here she is explaining what documents she released and kind of what they say.
Before the COVID pandemic, Dr. Fauci, as head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, provided millions in U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund dangerous gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, work which is now widely viewed as the source of the unintentional lab leak that sparked the pandemic.
Yeah, she went on to say, John, that, again, a little bit more in that release, but in the paper release, we found that there was an inspector general who had a report saying as much, and it was buried by the Biden administration in early 2021. This is just so disturbing. And this comes on the heels of last week. We learned about all of these gain-of-function type laboratories in places like Ukraine. I mean, the American taxpayer has... I mean, what percentage of our budget do you think the American taxpayer has a knowledge of, just a regular American taxpayer, of where this money is going? And, this was a terrible pandemic. Also, Cheryl Atkinson, who's a journalist in the country, many people know her, reporting yesterday that she found a paper that Dr. Fauci had written just before the pandemic talking about how he didn't think this coronavirus pandemic was going to be so bad, and then tried to ask him about that contradiction and didn't get anywhere with that. So just an incredible amount of revelations there. Now, another story coming out of the Trump administration, coming out of the ballot box stuffing situation going on in California. Kash Patel announcing yesterday that a bunch of federal agents descended on what's called Skid Row in Los Angeles to find out if people were paid, people were coerced into signing ballots, multiple ballots. Of course, that was the area where the mail-in ballots came in that pushed Spencer Pratt out of the runoff election in Los Angeles in November. We know that these ballots came from Skid Row. We know that they came from homeless people. The question is, were they coerced? Were they legally allowed to vote? And the FBI is looking into this. Probably won't be enough to get Spencer Pratt on the ballot in November. I don't think that's going to happen. But it's all about chilling effects, where people say, well, this is a waste of time. Well, if this stops the Democrats from going into these areas next time, it could make a big difference. Plus,
until somebody goes to jail and spends actual time in jail, this is not going to correct itself.
No.
I mean, it's horrible. I mean, I had the U.S. attorney. I'm looking for our discussion with Mark Levin last night because I want to replay part of it. And nobody did the minicast last night. We interviewed the U.S. attorney from Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to play that interview later on, too, because it's horrible. Yeah. I mean, you know how you can get registered to vote? By having a gym invoice.
Yeah, a gym membership.
Yeah, I mean, horrible.
And by the way, just on a human scale, what kind of person goes into Skid Row dealing with people who are that troubled, that poor, drug addicts, and instead of helping them, instead of saying, hey, here's a relief program, a treatment program you can get to, something like that, instead hands them a bunch of ballots and tells them to sign it. I mean, the cynicism of that, There's a historical corollary to that. You know how Edgar Allan Poe died?
No, how?
Edgar Allan Poe was suffering from rabies, which is very painful, apparently. And instead of helping him, these guys grabbed him in Baltimore and ran him through the ballot box 75 times, had him voting over and over again, and then they just threw him in the street. That's how he died. And when I heard about how they're going into Skid Row with these people who are suffering from God knows what, and we can talk about the causes of drugs and homelessness, and all, that's a different discussion. But what kind of maniac goes into Skid Row with just a bunch of ballots and doesn't say, hey, here's a treatment program, here's a hospital you can go to, here's a shelter? I mean, this is beyond just political partisanship. This is lack of humanity. It really is.
Well, the problem the Democratic Party has is that the socialists that would run for office and never get more than 2%, came up with a scheme. Let's take over the Democratic Party, and then we have a shot. And they took over the Democratic Party step by step by step. They get rid of this one, and if somebody raises a voice, guess what? That was the next person they got rid of.
And it's noticeable because we saw this yesterday at the Obama Library event. And Barack Obama is no longer necessarily the last word for the Democratic Party. This leftward shift of socialists don't follow every word he says.
Now, I understand they had the pre-opening and all the presidents were there. And I saw a clip that all the presidents went off stage, including Jill Biden, and left Joe Biden by himself on the stage, and he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's
a scary
video,
the man
actually
is sick,
yeah,
that is a sin as far for Jill Biden, the wife. It's a sin to leave him by himself on that stage. Okay? If the man is sick, he's sick. All right? But take care of him.
Yeah, I mean,
He is the former president.
Hey, maybe she forgot he's not president anymore, and there's a bunch of, back when they were in the White House and he was just as sick, there were all these staffers to help him walk the right way. She may not be the best caregiver. But another outrage at that event was Barack Obama's speech.
What did he say?
Well, here's where he's talking about how you should have a peaceful transfer of power. No, this is the man who helped initiate the Russia collusion hoax and not accept the peaceful transfer of power. But here he is lecturing us about this.
A belief in the peaceful transfer of power after the people have spoken in fair and free elections, recognizing that in a large, complicated society like ours, no group or faction gets its way 100% of the time.
Well, he doesn't believe in that. I mean, the documents have all come out and proven that there were White House meetings where they deliberately took on the Clinton plan, which was the Hillary Clinton campaign plan to create this Russia collusion hoax, which didn't only just hurt Donald Trump. That would be one thing. This tore the country apart, John. People, I know families that are still ripped apart about this. People who had grown up as enemies of the Soviet Union and people who were wary of Vladimir Putin, both very justified.
Listen, we can go on forever on that. I mean,
Terrible.
You can come up with J6 and all the atrocities that happened there. I mean, there's so many. In the whole thing, by the way, I understand that to build that, we had, you know who else we had on? The former governor of Illinois last night.
Rod Blagojevich?
Yeah. And I understand that the Obama went $500 million over budget.
And people haven't gotten paid.
And a lot of people haven't gotten paid.
Yeah, minority contractors.
And a lot of black people, they're going to put them out of business if they don't get paid.
Yeah, and this is not new, by the way. All right, we're going to take a little break.
This is
Sid on Sports.
Oh my goodness! Sponsored by Peerless Boilers on 77 WABC.
Justin Ellick here with your sports update, sponsored by Pete Morgan and Peerless Boilers. Go to peerlessboilers.com to find a deal near you. Peerless Boilers, the world's best built boiler. Start on the diamond in Philadelphia. Juan Soto hit 2 solo homers and made a sliding catch in the left field corner to rob Bryce Harper of a run-scoring hit, as the Mets defeated the Phillies 6-4 in the opener of a 3-game series. Pinch hitter Eric Wagman provided the tie-breaking single with 2 outs in the 7th, and Marcus Semien followed with a 2-run triple. Oscar Brazaban earned the win in relief of starter Sean Manaea, and Devin Williams worked the 9th for his 11th save. Up next for the Mets, a rare Friday off today as Philadelphia hosts a World Cup match. Teams resume their 3-game series tomorrow night. Freddie Peralta set to start for New York against Phillies' Christopher Sanchez. In the Bronx, Yankees lost 5-1 in the finale of a 3-game series against the White Sox. Unable to complete the sweep of Chicago, Ryan McMahon hit a tying homer in the 3rd off bulk reliever Sean Burke. But the Yankees had their 4-game winning streak snapped and fell to 9-5 since losing captain Aaron Judge to that fractured right rib. New York also lost Jazz Chisholm Jr. in the 4th when the second baseman, fouled a pitch off the area near his groin. Yankee starter Ryan Weathers allowed 1 run and 3 hits in 6 1/3 innings of work. The left-hander struck out 8 and walked 1. Up next for the Yankees, Cam Schlittler will get the start tonight in the opener of a 3-game set against the visiting Cincinnati Reds. A little interleague action there. First pitch from the Bronx is scheduled for 7:05 p.m. The 126th U.S. Open Championship got underway yesterday at the historic Shinnecock Hills Golf Club in Southampton. Everything should get going on time today. Let's get a closer look at that weather. Wyndham Clark holds a commanding 4-stroke solo lead at the 2026 U.S. Open. 6 under for Wyndham, former U.S. Open champion there. You have a few guys, handful of players today finishing up their first round as they get into second round action out in Southampton. And Team USA will pick up their World Cup group play action this afternoon at 3 p.m. They'll meet also 1-0 Australia out in Seattle. That is your sports, sponsored by Pete Morgan and Peerless Boilers. Go to peerlessboilers.com to find a deal near you. Peerless Boilers, the world's best built boilers. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Margot left me in 1977.
For Barry Manilow? No.
In December of 1977, or 76, or December 76. And I sent her a record player. You have to send a record player
back then,
and a 45
record.
And it was a Can't Smile Without You.
Wow. Barry Manilow just wrapping up, by the way, what he's calling his final tour. He's had a lot of health problems, but apparently he did great on that tour. A lot of these singers, they get into their 50s and 60s, and he's older than that.
Well, he's
they
in his
lose
80s,
it.
and
yeah.
Last year. I went to Bobby Vinton's. He had a birthday down in Florida, down in St. Pete, and he's 87, 88, but he still looks good.
Yeah. Well, Manilow, Brooklyn guy.
Now,
Great New York story.
Last night.
Yeah.
We had a rollout swing fest with Mark Levin. So let's play a few minutes of it, because the judge went at it, I went at it, Mark Levin went at it, everybody was at it in the studio. And do we have a copy of that? Let's play that.
Great.
Let's go to one smart guy, Mark Levin. Of course, you can hear him every weeknight here on 77 WABC. Mark, you've been hearing our very spirited conversation. Your reaction to what's in this memorandum?
Wow. Cats, you're all excited today. I've been listening to you here. I'll tell you what.
We have a good time.
I'll tell you what. Here's the bottom line. Give me any evidence whatsoever, any document they've signed, any agreement they made, any evidence whatsoever that they adhered to a deal. Just give me one piece. There's zero. So we're debating the MOU. We're doing an MOU now because the president wants to get out of this. I get it. We got an election. I got that too. But that's beside the point. I get how important that is. But when we're focused on the MOU, then focus on the MOU, not even the big picture. What's in it? Yes, they're going to get $300 billion at some point, somewhere. It doesn't matter. And what are they going to do with that $300 billion when we're all done and they've done whatever they're supposed to do? I read the MOU. JD says they have to meet this. I see none of that in there. So they have 60 days to negotiate. And so my advice to them is you better get those ballistic missiles in there, because that's one of the reasons we went to war in the first place. They spoke about a ring of ballistic missiles to protect their nuclear program. Those ballistic missiles did more damage to the oil systems in the Arab countries, and more damage to Israel than anything, because they're the most powerful conventional weapon they have. They can now reach Europe, and nothing's going to stop China, North Korea, and or Russia from showing them how to reach the United States. Those damn things better be in some deal. I don't even know how we're going to monitor it, but they better. That's number one. Number two, the idea that Israel's responding to Hezbollah when they fire 2 drones into the desert, that's not what's happening. It is a constant missile barrage being fired into Israel in the north area of Israel. They're having to depopulate their country, which is a tiny country to begin with. And no country's going to put up with that. We didn't put up with them when they took one of our helicopters out. Iran is demanding it because Hezbollah is its strongest military arm. They weren't taken out. Their Air Force was taken out. Their Navy was taken out. Their radar systems were taken out and so forth. Hezbollah's remain. Lebanon wants nothing to do with Hezbollah. The Christians who live there have had enough of Hezbollah. It is Iran is Hezbollah. That needs to be fixed too. And there's some other things. But look, I trust the president. I love the president. I know he wants to do the right thing. And I think we have an obligation, to give them the best advice we can, not just people in the White House, not just Tucker Carlson who's trying to get his views in, or Megyn Kelly or whatever. We have a responsibility to raise issues too, and he'll either take them or he'll ignore them.
Mark Levin, I agree with you 110%. And Israel should be able to go in and do whatever the heck they want in those other countries that are attacking them.
I have some breaking news.
Give it to us.
I don't mean to be
wait, breaking news.
Yeah, hold on. Here it is. Breaking news.
Breaking news. WABC.
You're on, Mark.
This is Channel 14 in Israel by Libby Blanca Alan. Interview with Channel 14. President Trump confirmed that the U.S. would, quote, absolutely, unquote, back Israel if it launches an independent attack on Iran. Now, I don't have any context for this. I'm just reading it across my
I agree.
email.
I agree with that. I mean,
I'm glad.
Our number one priority right now, Mark Levin, if we don't win November, we're in deep crap.
I agree. But you know what, Katz? It's not going to be this. the last poll says that over 80% of the people are focused on the economy.
Yes.
Less than.
And I'm in the oil business.
Attention to this war.
And Mark Levin, Maria Bartiromo is having me on tomorrow at 8:30 because I, for the last 2 years, have been exactly on the mark on the price of oil and interest rates. And what's going on, oil went down to $74 today or $73. It's only $10 away from the 65 I predicted. And we get the price of oil down. We get all the nuclear scientists that's saying inflation, that goes away, and we can bring interest rates down. We bring oil down, cost of energy down, and interest rates down.
Are more copacetic than you may think. I posted, I think it was yesterday, I don't remember. I said, you know what, I don't like any of this deal. We should have finished them off. I don't know why we took a 2-week ceasefire that turned into 9 weeks. We had them on the ground. We could have wiped them out. I really believe this. And that said, I said, why don't we play their game, drag them out? The straits are open. Well, you'll get what you want. Now drag them out till after the election, and then bomb the shit out of them.
That's what we're doing. Don't forget.
I agree with John.
Me and the guy you just met a few years ago, me and Trump go back 50 years, so that's what he's doing.
And the agreement permits
I didn't mean to
That's
curse.
the way
Sorry
it works.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Mark
We
Levin,
bleeped it. We
bleeped it anyway. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Good.
Hey, Mark, I want to go back to one other thing you said. To me, I was watching J.D. Vance today. One of the things he did say, he said that, yes, Israel has a right to defend itself. And obviously President Trump 100% agrees with that, which is great. But he also said this, and this was kind of shocking to me. He said, Trump, he kind of scolded. He said, anybody in Israel who's critical of the deal or critical of Trump right now, saying Trump is the only head of state in the entire world who's sympathetic to the nation of Israel at this time. What
I thought that was disgusting, and I want you to know something. People are going back and looking at what these cabinet members said. Not a single one was critical of Israel. Of Trump. Not one. He's also wrong about not a single head of state. We know Hungary. We know Serbia. We know Argentina. I don't have the whole list in my head. That's simply not true. I'm not a big fan of things that he says like that. I think they're outrageous. He's talked about Iran in very cozy terms that, wow, they're getting like more reasonable, and I think we can work with them. They actually sound pretty. Iran has killed thousands of Americans with Hezbollah. They've maimed thousands of Americans. Don't hand me this crap that they're reasonable and we can get along with them and everything else. Does anybody know what they believe? There's one guy in the world that has right on his desk right here, Islamic Government, written by the original Khomeini in English. You read this thing, no wonder it's called the Khomeini Mein Kampf. It is sick. It is brutal. It is a death cult. People are talking. They don't even know what we're dealing with. Let me tell you, the Iranians think right now that they won. Now, why do they think that? Because they're surviving. And they don't care how many die. They don't care how many planes they lose. They're there for the next decade and the next decade and the decade after that. Like the communist Chinese, they look at things in a 1,000-year period. That's how these people conduct themselves. We're Westerners. We have election cycles. We're fighting for the next election cycle. What about the price of oil? What about the stock market? This doesn't enter their heads. What they're thinking now is, okay, we ducked the biggest bullet we ever faced, and we survived. And you know in their head what they're saying? According to this book, they're stronger than ever. That God has protected them, Allah, and that Allah is telling them to fight on. Did you see what the supreme, whatever they call the supreme leader?
I saw that, Mark.
Yeah, you see the wiggle room he left in there? He leaves wiggle room. He says, look, these guys negotiated this. They did the best they could. That's okay. I'm not in the program, but I get what they're doing. In other words, the hardliners, they're all hardliners. For these guys, there's no moderates, or they'd be dead. This is what they go through. They did it with Obama. They did it with Biden. They did it with the Europeans. They did it with the IAEA. Once Trump's out, no holds barred. The Democrats win the presidency, they're going to walk all over him. And what's going to happen if they say, after they get all the money and everything's open, they say, you know what, we're ripping this damn thing up. What are you going to do about it? This is not over.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I agree 100%, but let's do first things first. And I think
I agree. We
knowing President Trump, and I don't know for a fact, but I just know him for a long time. That let's win November, and afterwards take care of the Iranian Republic Army after that.
I'm all for it. If that's what we do.
Like I said,
I don't think JD thinks that way.
JD has nothing to say. JD has nothing to say about it. It's President Trump is the president.
Yeah.
And I enjoy talking to you, and we have more in common than not.
We love you, Mark.
Thank you so much.
I love you guys.
And Mark,
by the way,
yes,
yeah, WABC is where I was born on radio. It's the best station in America. We all know that.
It is. You were in diapers, and you came out and said your first words were, as opposed to mom and dad, WABC.
And Mark Levin is on WABC at between 6 and 8 o'clock every day, Monday through Friday.
We love Mark. Mark, we love you. We love you, my friend. Great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Palisades Park. I mean, that's where I met Cousin Brucey 50 years ago, 60 years ago. I mean, I don't know. And now we're going to go live to the Ukraine. We have Governor Pataki's son, Owen Pataki, is leading a delegation there. And Owen, how are you?
No, Owen isn't.
It's Todd Shapiro. Owen hasn't called in yet, sir.
And Todd is in Ukraine, though, correct?
Todd Shapiro's in the Ukraine too. Todd Shapiro, tell us what's going on. You guys led a delegation to the Ukraine.
Well, I'm only part of the delegation, but I guess I'm the media part of it. But it's an incredible experience to go to Ukraine. It takes 8 hours to you have to go from Hungary, or you have to go from Poland. There's no airspace. You can't just fly in and go do humanitarian.
In other words, they won't let you go land in Ukraine. So you went to Hungary to land and then driven to the Ukraine.
Exactly. It's easy to take Capital Airlines today, which doesn't exist, as you know. But there's no way to get there right now, other than you get driven in there. They have like a Navy SEAL assigned to us, and it's called Heroes for Football.
And this is for the Pataki Foundation.
Pataki Foundation started this a few years ago. It's really a brilliant thing.
Now, in the United States, we've got all the Europeans coming to the United States playing soccer. And you guys went to Ukraine to play football, American football.
It sounds like a Polish joke, right? but it's not. It's actually really. I'm kidding. It's really an amazing football for heroes program, and George, the governor, former governor, did this with Roger Dell from the NFL, where they set up a program bringing footballs. A lot of the troops in Ukraine have children. Their children are restless as their fathers are out, fighting and away. They're sitting in these small villages and homes. So they brought American football into the Ukraine, where they actually have soldiers as coaches, Ukrainian soldiers, not American. So imagine American football, touchdown, not the one you kick like they're doing here at Meadowlands or whatever you want to call it today over in East Rutherford. It's a whole different kind of thing, a whole different kind of thing. And it's doing really well. It's we're excited. Expect about 500 kids that will be there. And I'm just blessed to be part of this program, Football for Heroes program.
So how many people how many people in the delegation?
We have 10 people, and it's I'm excited. It's one of the greatest experiences of my life. The only thing that scares me is that 30,000 Russians get killed every month in Ukraine. But they have apps. They give you an app that tells you when the drone is coming. So I feel good. I feel lucky.
Now you have an app on your cell phone, and it goes off when the drone is coming for you?
He's safe. Okay. Yeah, it goes off and tells you when a drone is getting close to you.
Now, do you have Owen Pataki? Is he near you? Can you get on the phone with us?
He's not. He's they're resting. They're in a different area right now. But Owen Pataki, the governor's son, who's leading the delegation, because he's a Pataki, and there's nothing better than the Pataki Foundation to have this happen. He's a former military. He was in the Army. He served in Afghanistan. So it's really it's really nice to have him, doing what he's doing, having his father, put this together for us. I mean, he's been doing this for several years. They were bringing heaters. They were bringing, humanitarian food. For the last several years, when this first war started, it's not that just doing this now. They've been providing millions of dollars in humanitarian aid. And listen, the governor at 80 years old could be sitting there, thinking about, the beach. He cares about people. He cares about helping people and doing the right thing. And that's what the Pataki Foundation is all about. That's what he started. They get $1 million grant from the U.S. State Department. So the U.S. State Department is involved in this program. And they're providing, listen, what people think we're not, we're paying attention to one war over in the Middle East. We really have compassion for the Ukraine and for the people over here, more the families.
And the State Department gave $1 million grant to do this football for the Ukraine people, or is it for United States soldiers?
It was for this program that was set up by the governor.
Todd Shavir, this is Jake. Hey Todd, this is Jake Novak speaking. It speaks to the popularity. By the way, American football connected to U.S. military bases and then also bleeding over to the local populations is nothing new. There have been American NFL stars who grew up playing in Europe and then came to the United States, either, maybe did a year or two of college and then went to the NFL. As John mentioned, we're in the midst of this World Cup thing where it's being jammed down our throats, soccer. It's nice to see the United States promoting our number one American sport, which is American football, over there, and they love it there. I mean, Roger Goodell, you mentioned his name. The NFL's got to be loving the response to those NFL games that have been going on in Europe. They are playing more and more games in Europe every year, including this coming season. This is an investment in the future for the NFL, and they love it, don't they?
They deal with the kids. If you see the kids' faces in the Ukraine, how wonderful. It makes a difference in the lives of people. And you know what? What Governor Pataki's foundation is doing, in the Greek word, it's called mitzvah. Is that Greek or Jewish? I don't even know.
That's a Hebrew word, but okay. I'm sure there's a Greek word. It has a Greek origin, as John would probably say.
Well, I think John has 1% of everything there is. Anyway, so bottom line, the word mitzvah, he's doing a mitzvah for the people here. He's doing a mitzvah for the children. I mean, these troops are fighting, to try to survive and keep their nationalism, keep their country alive. Imagine if Russians came into your country trying to take your homes and all of a sudden, I mean, I remember going here last year. I mean, I saw buildings that were blown up where we were giving heaters, giant industrial heaters the size of cars to keep people warm in the middle of the cold, because there's nothing worse than being in the Ukraine or being in some of the weather and not having heat to keep your family warm. And sometimes when you look at things, we complain about little things. You really forget about the big picture in life, about the things that when people don't have a place to live and they go homeless, they don't have food on their thing, you really look at life and it takes a different turn. So is it worth risking your life to come to a thing, to help people? 100%, because, these people need a blessing, and the Pataki Foundation is providing that blessing for them. And it's, you see the smile on these kids' faces by just touching a football. I mean, American football. I mean, I went to the World Cup a few days ago, and it was great. It was amazing. I mean, it cost you $200 for lunch, but when you see a $5 hot dog being given, and I got to tell you, they're great hot dogs there, by the way. But when you see a hot dog being given, with footballs, and it brings American back home, and it makes you look at the big picture in life. And John does mitzvahs every day, so he knows what that's like.
Well, Todd, stay in touch with us from the Ukraine, and if Owen Pataki is available later on, we'd love to talk to him and get his perspective on things. And we'll stay safe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, and tell Owen maybe the State Department can help his old Cornell football team because they haven't had a winning season in 21 years.
We'll tell him in person, okay?
I got to tell you one quick funny story real quick. So last year I was there, and my wife, I called my wife, and I was sitting at a McDonald's in Kiev, and I had two mercenaries sitting next to me with guns. I FaceTime my wife. She goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm having lunch at McDonald's." Todd, be careful. So, it's just whatever.
Stay safe. Stay safe. And I hope you got that app on your telephone, so if a drone is coming for you,
Hi. If the drone is cut, it's a drone phone.
We got to go. We got Rod Blagojevich on the other line. Last night.
I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, the Obama Library, it's officially open, and today a whole bunch of presidents were there. Of course, former President Obama, also Joe Biden, Bill Clinton was there, George W. Bush, G.W. Bush.
I'm glad all the presidents were there.
No, yeah,
They
should be. They always do.
Well,
they always do show up.
Yeah.
Clinton showed up for W's opening.
Absolutely,
we were there.
as they should.
We were there.
As they should, right? Yeah. Beautiful. By the way, you had a 50th anniversary.
Let's go to Rod. He's all the way in Europe.
He is. Rod, what are you doing in Europe, by the way?
I'm in Serbia, where my father came from, and I have some business stuff that I do here, and so that's why I'm here, and it's midnight, you should know, and I was probably going to go to bed, but anytime you guys call, I drop everything I'm doing.
Thank you so much, Rod. Rod, there's all kinds of crap going around about the
Obama Library,
Library, that people are owed money and things like that. I'm glad he built it in Chicago. That's where he's from. It looks like a beautiful project. That's what it is. But have you heard anything? Or what do you hear? I mean, you were the governor. You get all the inside track. Give us the inside track of what's going on in Chicago.
Well, the inside track is that African American Contractors Association is suing Obama's library administrators or whoever is responsible for doing the construction of the projects because they haven't been paid. Millions of unpaid bills. Millions of dollars worth of unpaid bills to black contractors, minority firms. And it's ironic.
Are the Obama short money? I'm sure they're not short money. Will have their fundraising gone down?
They're $500 million over budget. And within some of the terms,
$500 million over budget.
Library,
wow.
They should have got.
Maybe he thinks he's still president.
Library, he would have done it under cost.
Did you hear what your other favorite governor said, Gov. Patterson?
I said maybe he thinks he's still president.
Governor Patterson, what did he say?
I said maybe he thinks he's still president.
Yeah. Look, I don't know the feeling that he has, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to President Obama because, look, he was the president, God bless him, and he's right to have a library, and you're right. It's great that all the other presidents came there. But you know how I'm going to treat the presidential library, Obama's presidential library, John Catsimatidis? I'm going to treat it the way I treated the law school library when I was there. I'm just not going to go.
Now, what's the buzz about the look of it? I've seen the look of it, and it's like an eyesore. I mean, it's a very weird construction. A lot of people are not even happy about it visually.
It looks like an ugly prison.
Yeah. You heard the Judge Weinberg said it looks like an ugly prison. It really does. And Chicago is such a beautiful city, but it's of all designs. What do you make of that? You're an expert.
I am an expert. I know something about prisons, and you're right.
Rod, good one, Rod. So how does this compare to the prison you were in?
I'm almost afraid the prison I was in might have been actually more physically attractive than this one. It's easy to, criticize, but I know that neighborhood where that library is very well. Obama used to live there, and it's a beautiful neighborhood, and Jackson Park is historic. The environmentalists didn't want Obama to have the library there because they didn't want it to mar the park scenes. The Friends of the Parks organization, which is very active in Chicago, protecting our lakefront parks, which are beautiful, fought the Obama people to prevent that library from going in that place. And they didn't prevail. Obama did. But unfortunately, I think they added insult to injury by building something that's really objectively unattractive and unappealing. That is not at all a good-looking library for presidents. And if you look at the other presidential libraries, it looks nothing like those.
Yeah. The others have sort of a grandeur about them and have this one. You're right. There's something missing. And obviously, clearly, it took them a long time to build this. I mean, there were clear hurdles.
But Chicago is known for its great architecture. Louis B. Sullivan, Frank Lloyd Wright, and this?
Yeah. Daniel Burnham said, make no small plans, right? You know, maybe what they ought to do to address some of the optics of that library, because it looks so much like a prison, is I recommend they have a Rod Blagojevich wing in that library to fit in with the actual architect.
Well, actually, Governor, I was going to suggest that you and I create governor's libraries in each other's states, and it'll definitely look better than anything Obama put up.
Yeah, I think so. It's not a high bar.
By the way, here's some interesting kind of breaking news. Stay with us, Governor. Here's a little bit of breaking news coming out.
Breaking news, WABC.
President Trump has settled. There was a $100 million lawsuit with his niece, who called him the most dangerous man. Remember, this was Mary Trump. That lawsuit was filed over accusations that she leaked financial information and family tax documents to the New York Times. We're not hearing what the details are, but both parties expect to seek a formal dismissal. And the letter states that the parties are pleased to report they've reached an agreement and anticipate to be able to stipulate a dismissal. What do you think about that, Judge? What's your reaction? You're smiling. Go ahead.
I think families are interesting things.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to say it.
Well said.
Yeah, Rod, what do you think from Europe?
I think President Trump's niece is not going to be invited to Mar-a-Lago.
Well said. Before we let you go, what's the reaction, by the way, over there in Europe to everything that's going on with Iran? Because obviously, President just left Europe. He already landed, but he was over there and meeting with so many of the G7.
Well, it's interesting. I can speak from Serbia, where I am, and they here in Serbia love Donald Trump. Huge supporters of Donald Trump. In fact, there were polls, European polls, indicating the level of support of Europeans towards Trump, and Serbia by far had the largest numbers of support for Trump, better than 60% support. So he's very popular here, and the president here, Vučić, has invited President Trump to visit Belgrade and promised him a huge crowd and reaction of favorability. And you know, I think not to get too serious, but I do think it's in America's national interest to develop better relations with Serbia, because Serbia is the biggest country in the Western Balkans, has an economic growth that is above the European average right now. It's a vibrant country on the move. They've come a long way from what happened in the late 1999 when we bombed them. So
you and I were there together, Rod. Remember, you and I were there.
I was at Camp David.
I remember vividly when we got
I was at Camp David.
I
was at Camp David asking Bill Clinton not to bomb them.
And they bombed.
No, he said he had to do it.
Yeah, they bombed.
Yeah. Remember, and actually, remember the story, Rod? This is so funny. Jesse Jackson, do you remember this? He said, "No, I called Madeleine Albright. They're not going to bomb." And as soon as you and I were on the bus, the bombs were flying everywhere.
No, he had to do it because Bill Clinton. He told me the story. He felt what was that African country he didn't send the 5,000 troops to?
Oh, yeah. Was it Somalia or Rwanda?
Rwanda.
Yes,
right,
yes. I remember that. That's
in
right.
My book, Rwanda.
I remember that,
He didn't
yes.
send the 5,000 troops, and they lost 500,000 people or something.
Yeah, he felt
and
he had to.
He had to, and that's the reason to do it. And it was Greek Easter, and I asked him not to do it. The Archbishop had asked me to ask him not to do it on Greek Easter. He says, "John, I have to do it."
I just wish he would have waited till we made it into the hotel. Don't you think, Rod?
Look, I frankly wish he never did it. I love John Catsimatidis, but I think that was the wrong thing to do. The United States and NATO bombed us out.
I tried to stop it. I didn't say
you
to do
approval.
it.
What does that remind you of?
Yep.
I mean, he was Putin. Clinton was Putin before Putin.
All right, well said there. Rod, thank you very much.
Governor.
We love you, Rod. Yeah. Rod, thank you so much.
What do we all stand for?
Truth, justice, and the American way.
God bless America.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I am happy to remind you that it is. If you still have to go to work, at least the traffic will be a little bit better. How about that? Stock markets are closed this morning. There is futures trading, and more importantly, there's oil trading. And I have more good news for you. If you're taking this long weekend to go and do a long drive somewhere, maybe do a little day trip, you have the 29th straight day of lower gas prices in this country as far as national average is concerned. And that's my favorite thing to say here as I'm filling in for Sid and Friends. I'm Jake Novak filling in for Sid Rosenberg. John Catsimatidis is with us. He'll be back with us in just a moment. Wanted to get you updated on that particular news. I mean, that's the news you want to wake up to. Possibly no work today. Definitely no school. Lower gas prices. Oil's trading, by the way, even though the stock market is not today, and we're at the $76 a barrel level. We were lower yesterday, but we're going to still see lower gas prices. Tomorrow, the national average will be lower as well. $3.97 is the national average for 1 gallon of gas regular. And that is down 56 cents from a month ago today, and now only 99 cents higher from where we were on day one of the Iran war. So we're starting to get back to normal here. And that's exactly as John Catsimatidis predicted. And for all of you people who hate those evil speculators, those oil speculators, they make me pay so much money. Now you're thanking them, because if we had federal freezes on oil prices and gasoline prices, it wouldn't go down so fast either. These people who send the market up send it down, and gasoline prices are moving down pretty quickly. Usually they take a lot longer to respond to lower oil prices, but you know, these local franchisees, these guys who own these gas, they don't want to lose customers. You know, when gas prices go up, it kills these gas stations. It helps the oil companies, but the gasoline, the fill-up stations and everyone around you, they get hurt because people don't come in, or they do come in, but then they don't buy the M&Ms and the Coke and whatever else, and the bottles of water that they sell. So that's an important development. Not the greatest news, though, coming out of Lebanon this morning, and this is something that's very, very much at the forefront of the international news when it comes to the Iran deal, et cetera, et cetera. Hezbollah used either an anti-tank missile or a highly weaponized drone to hit an Israeli tank in Lebanon overnight and killed the entire crew, 5 dead, 4 dead, actually, and that included the tank battalion commander. And Israel retaliated hard, hitting Hezbollah infrastructures in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, which, by the way, is still a major hashish-producing region in the world, which is why people have been fighting over it since ancient times. It's not just about terrorism. It's not just about religion. It's also about controlling some of the best hashish growing lands in the history of the world. So that's what we got going on right now. So the question is this what's throwing a wrench in the continued talks between the U.S. and Iran? Vice President J.D. Vance's trip, now confirmed by the White House, been postponed. He was supposed to go to Geneva to continue the talks and flesh out the nuclear material handover by the Iranians, the whole 9 yards. I don't think that was actually postponed because of what happened in Lebanon just now, because it looked like it was going to be postponed before then. But again, and as you just heard, we replayed the interview with Mark Levin, and a position I think a lot of people need to understand about this Iran deal. From a journalistic point of view, you're going to hear us on Talk Radio 77 WABC talk about the details of the Iran deal. From a journalism point of view, that's the responsible thing to do. But from an analysis point of view, I can boil it down to you for one thing, which is we know Iran's going to break the deal. So the only question is what Donald Trump will do when they break the deal. It's as simple as that. And you can trust or not trust, but honestly, if there's any president in U.S. history, or at least the last 50 years, who would do something if Iran breaks the deal, it would be Trump. I mean, that's where your odds would be. If you think the odds are low, fine, but you can't put another president's odds higher. He talked a little bit earlier about how the socialist movement, which couldn't get better than 2% of a vote when it ran on its own, changed its strategy a few years ago to try to take over the Democratic Party. And that was with people like Bernie Sanders and folks like AOC and stuff like that. And, of course, our mayor, Zohran Mamdani. These are all socialists who have taken over a significant part of the Democratic Party. Well, they're trying again now with a number of elections across the country. But in New York, this congressional election in the 13th New York Congressional District, which is a lot of Harlem, this is uptown Manhattan, parts of the Bronx. It has been represented for 5 terms by a guy named Adriano Espaillat, who is no right-winger. Not only is he a Democrat, he's a left-wing Democrat, folks. He's anti-ICE, he's anti-Trump, but that's not good enough for the Democrat socialists, for the socialists, because the socialists, as much as they talk about economic policy, they're called socialists after all, it does seem to be like their number one policy is to hate on Israel. Well, I don't know where that helps anybody economically in New York City, especially not in the Bronx and Uptown and Harlem. I don't get it. But they think that they can win with this. But they're not going to get all of the support that they want. Very interesting report about the person who's challenging Adriano Espaillat. This is this Democrat socialist in this primary, which is this Tuesday, by the way. Her name is Daralizia Chevalier. She is running against Espaillat. The polls are hard to read in this election. Counterintuitively, for those of you who know about polling, the smaller the sample size, the harder it is to poll accurately. You would think it would be easier. For some reason, national polls are usually much closer to being correct than these smaller region polls. So I don't even want to talk about the polls right now because it's hard to believe. But it does seem to be a very spirited campaign, and Darisa Chevalier, for all of her socialist talk, is getting millions and millions of dollars funded to her. If you watch the Knicks parade on any one of the local channels here in New York yesterday, commercials for her with Mamdani supporting her were all over every commercial break during the parade, so they paid a lot of money for this. Well, there's a new report out about something that has already been absolutely agreed to, and everyone agrees to this. This is not something that Chevalier denies, that she was at a rally on October 8th. This is well before Israel retaliated against the October 7th attacks in 2023 that celebrated the Hamas murders, celebrated the Hamas rapes. People were jumping up and down. I'll play you some sound from that in a second. But this apparently is a bridge too far for even some of the far leftist Democrats in New York City. We just found out that a group called the Broadway Democrats is not going to endorse Chevalier, and they've strongly endorsed Espaillat, and they explain why in a release that they sent out to all of their members. And they made it really clear here who they are. Quote, the Broadway Democrats say, quote, we usually support the younger, more progressive candidate, end quote. But they can't do that because at their own closed-door endorsement meeting, when they were interviewing Chevalier and Espaillat, Chevalier refused to condemn Hamas. She wouldn't say one bad word about them, and they gave her time after time to do it, and she wouldn't do it, and instead she just kept attacking Israel. And they said, it just doesn't make sense. You want to be anti-Israel, okay, but she's pro-Hamas. And again, now we have sound. This is sound from a rally celebrating Hamas murders and rapes the day after October 7th. She's in the front row. Listen to what they're saying.
Less than 24 hours ago on the land, from the sea, and from the air, the people of the Gaza Strip broke out of the largest open-air prison.
I mean, at this rally, they're so excited about the rape and murder of people going to a music concert and defenseless people and families on a kibbutz who were attacked by Hamas terrorists. And she's in there celebrating, cheering, being very excited. Well, we have some of these problems elsewhere in the country as well. This is an interesting story that just broke late last night. A man in Gainesville, Florida, has been arrested and indicted. It turned out he was planning to commit a mass shooting attack at an AIPAC office in Plantation, Florida. He tried to volunteer to work there, and he armed himself with an AR-15, including with a silencer, and staked out the AIPAC office in Plantation, Florida. This is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. These are American citizens who support Israel, and yes, they support candidates. They're not even in the top 20 of people who donate money to candidates across the country, but if you listen to some folks, you think that they're the number one. It's really outrageous. Well, anyway, his name is Forrest Kendall Pemberton. I posted a picture of him on my social media at JakeNY. That's on X, at JakeNY. He seems nice. You'll see a picture of him. He does not look like an upstanding citizen. But all joking aside, he was planning a mass shooting attack on the AIPAC offices. This is according to the Department of Justice. And in one I guess, nicer caveat to this story. It turns out his own family members are the ones who turned him in. And that doesn't mean they don't care about him. Just means that, it could simply mean that they knew that somebody who carries out mass shootings, they often get killed themselves. You're not doing your criminal relatives any favors if you just let them commit criminal acts. Let's put it that way. Anyway, that is what's going on with all the aspects here of the Iran deal, this now new attack, Hezbollah attacking an Israeli tank and killing the entire tank crew, and the Israelis retaliating. Nothing yet from the White House about it. And as we said in one of our earlier segments, so be it. You've heard a lot about people talking in Israel being very upset with this Iran deal, and I could tell you this very definitively. If Israel is allowed to retaliate against Hezbollah in this way, like they did this morning, U.S. time, without any pushback from the White House publicly, they'll be fine with it. You'll probably hear the end of the complaints, because that, to me, and to a lot of people in Israel, was the number one problem with this deal. If Hezbollah is not going to be able to be protected by the deal, and Israel is going to be able to take care of business there, then so be it. So be it.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
On the line with us, we have General Blaine Holt. And, there's nobody better than him. I found him to be very reliable and really getting the information out. General, where do you want to start this morning? It's early in the morning, and the sun is trying to shine. What's going on?
Well, it's going to shine, John. Thanks for having me on. But, man, do we have a royal mess in the geopolitical realm or in foreign affairs. As we knew we would, President Trump's strategy is not very much appreciated in Tel Aviv right now. And it's got to be, we seriously got to work out these misalignment problems with our ally Israel.
Well, Israel has to do what they have to do. And right. I think Trump understands that. Americans understand that, and I understand it. And if the Hezbollah attacks them, what I would do if I was Israel, I'd attack them twice as bad. And you do what you have to do. And, Trump may say, naughty, you shouldn't have done that. But bottom line, Israel has to do what they have to do.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. They are, in a survival sense, having to defeat Hezbollah. But what I'm wondering is how much does Hezbollah have support left, meaning their supply chains, their intelligence? The IRGC is shredded. There's nothing left for them to support Hezbollah with. So I think it falls to President Ayoun of Lebanon, where we've got to go, listen, what types of things do we have to do to support you so that you stop any kind of material support that Hezbollah is demanding from Lebanon? Now,
what I said last night, Trump, President Trump says, make my day. That if they continue, or we're sending the ships along the Hormuz coast, and if they attack one of those ships, Trump is going to go in. My opinion. I haven't talked to the president. I don't know what he's going to do, but just my opinion. He's going to go in and knock out. Not going to hurt any civilians. But wherever the, what do you call them? The GC, wherever the IRGC is, they'll knock out every colonel, they'll knock out every major, and he's going to hurt them personally, and that's my opinion. What do you say, Joe?
I think you're exactly right. If there are colonels and majors even left, they took a hell of a blow last time, but that doesn't mean that there's not more to do. You've heard me say this. I don't think that we get to a final agreement without IRGC leaving the planet. But the concern we should all have is, as a martyr group of psychopaths that only dream of Armageddon leave the planet, then we have to watch for terror cells here as their last calling card. We have to take care of domestic security, and just like the Israelis are taking care of their own security. But I do think that President Trump, memorandum of understanding means we agree that we're going to find a way to get to an agreement. We're just beginning. Diplomatic sausage making is underway. It's unfortunate that the Switzerland meetings are not going to begin in earnest, but I think that they eventually will.
They will. They're taking the weekend off, I guess, in Monday morning. You know what you're going to see Monday morning? Well, Israel shouldn't have done that, but they did what they did, and our talks are continuing. The ships are moving, and the price of oil is going down.
12 million barrels yesterday, and I'm watching the maritime tracker. The ships are rolling through, and that oil is needed. Europe, I can't even begin to explain with the time we have how bad off Europe is now in the energy department. Much of their leadership's own doing, but that's okay. We don't begrudge the European peoples. And then the other thing is we really tried to help out the world by draining down our own stocks. We've got to get healthy again. And so it's very, very good to see the straight.
By the way, I know President Trump. I know him a long time. You know when he's going to fill up the reserves again? When oil is below $50.
It'll be there soon. It looks like it's on its way there.
Hey, General Holt, this is Jake Novak. I just want to talk a little bit more about this breaking news, this attack last night, Hezbollah hitting an Israeli tank, either with an anti-tank missile or a weaponized drone, we're not sure yet, killing the entire crew, including the battalion commander, lieutenant colonel in the Israeli army. Israel hitting back hard in the Bekaa Valley, as you just said, and John just said. So far, no word from the White House. And I have to tell you, as someone who knows the Israeli political situation very well, if that's going to be the MO going forward, that Israel goes and retaliates for attacks from Hezbollah and there's no word from the White House, the Israelis will be a lot more okay with this deal, if that's the way it's going to go.
I think you're right. But I also think there's a lot of back channel diplomacy between Tel Aviv and Washington going on right now. And they're going to define, and this is what we probably should have done at the outset, and I had hoped that they had, is there needs to be joint rules of engagement about how, what, where, when, and how do you neutralize targets. And I think they're going to get on the same page with that. Look, if Israel sees an attack, they've got to go after it. There's no question about that. The other part is logistically now is an opportunity to go finish off Hezbollah by choking off all of their weapon stores and supply chains because the IRGC is so bad off. Or Scott Bessent is tearing up the money laundering that they've been doing from Venezuela into Lebanon. So I'm very optimistic. It's just it's a rough couple of days. We got to get back on the same page with our ally, but I think we're on the path to a very good place. I'm overall very optimistic, but in the short term, we have to all remain very watchful.
Well, I will tell you, knowing Trump, like I said, and all the intelligence agencies listening to this station, they do listen, Trump is waiting to see you touch one of those ships going through, make my day, because he's going to go in there and blow the crap out of them.
And he'll start the revolution and aid and abet it as well.
Yes.
So we'll see a whole new Iran come together. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to see a new Iranian government. You're going to see a non-Islamic Republic of Iran. That's going to be good for everybody. And people will, after 47 years of being used to these terrorists that are psychopaths, we got to get used to the Iranians as something else. But these are the dangerous days. These are the ones, and that's why the president selected his vice president, taking it that seriously to get this thing across the line. But I think he will.
Yes, absolutely. Let's go to that B-52. Any update on that B-52 going down?
The only thing I can see that's new is that one of the crew members has now come out and made a statement that he had serious concerns about the mission overall going into it. I don't know whether that was aircraft related or that maybe he thought the new equipment going onto the bird was incompatible. But when you take off with an aircraft like that, you're not going to have combat radars engaged until you're up airborne and in a safe regime of flight. So there's a lot more to learn. I'm still interested in how much gas they had because something's wrong. Something
is rotten somewhere because one of the crew's wives was saying that they canceled it 3 times before.
Yeah.
They had 2 Boeing engineers aboard. Mm-hmm. Something they don't want to tell us yet.
Right. But for overall air safety, we do need to understand something of what happened without them having to divulge classified information. There was nothing left of that airplane. An entire B-52 vaporized. And that's very unusual. But look, if it was full of gas and other things, then maybe maybe I could see it differently.
Is it the
But
type of fuel they were using?
If they had test fuel on board, I have no knowledge that they had any kind of test fuels on board that airplane, or sustainable aviation fuel as they call it. But that there's no wreckage with it descending from not a very high altitude. That's very unusual.
I agree with you. Anything on that citation jet? The first time a NetJets plane went down?
Yeah, I just talked to a couple of corporate pilots yesterday. It's kind of looking like what you and I had surmised, that I think we're going to find out the pilot had a legitimate emergency in an unlandable configuration, but there are ways to mitigate the impact of such an emergency from the cockpit. I wish the crew would have taken more time when they were flying. I wish they would have delayed their decision to come down and get that airplane on the ground. Less fuel is a much better thing when you have an airplane that doesn't have its landing gear anymore, as you well know. You want to drain it on down to whatever the lowest you can stomach is, and then hold it off. And what I will be interested to know is what kind of human factors were happening between the first officer and the captain. What was that conversation like when the black box recordings come out? If we can get access to those, that'll be very helpful, I'm sure, for NetJets as well. Well, General Blaine Holt, thank you so much for everything you've done. And continue to tell our listeners and the American people the truth, and we'll catch up with you again real soon. I'm looking forward to it. Take care, everybody.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I'm Jake Novak in for Sid Rosenberg. We've got John Catsimatidis. We have Judge Richard Weinberg. We have George Venizelos. We are all filling in for the usual Sid and Friends team. And by the way, I hope I'm the first person to tell you this if you woke up this morning and didn't know. It's a federal holiday. You may not have to work today. Juneteenth. But that doesn't mean we're taking the time off. And neither is KT McFarland. KT, we've been talking already this morning. Big breaking news. Surprise, surprise. Hezbollah attacked Israeli troops this morning. I'm shocked. Yeah. They blew up a tank. Yeah, there's gambling in this establishment.
What movie did we see that in?
Casablanca. James Mason. James Mason's line. KT, I'm actually encouraged by the fact that so far we haven't heard anything from the White House about it. I think that if the Israelis get no words from the White House when they have to retaliate like this, they'll be fine with this.
Here's the problem. It's who does want the deal, who doesn't want the deal. In Iran, there are probably at least two groups. One group wants the deal because they don't like the deal, but they're pragmatists and they realize they have a country to run. And they've got to stop the economic pain. They know that the military punishment would be severe, and they know that they can't deal with the United States military if the United States military decides to attack its energy infrastructure. In other words, wipe out Iran's ability ever to make a nickel again. So they've made a deal. But who doesn't want the deal? And that's the IRGC and the mullahs, the military guys, the guys with the guns. They don't want any deal. Their deal is when Israel ceases to exist and America is wiped off the face of the earth. So they're never going to do a deal. But they know they can sabotage a deal. And I think that's what's happened now is that, okay, Israel has to respond, right? They have to defend themselves. Any sovereign nation has to defend itself. So what does Iran do? It knows it can't do military action because it will be severely punished, the ways I've just said. So it sort of tells Hezbollah, okay, guys, this is a chance to really sabotage the deal. You guys go ahead, do something. We know Israel then responds, and then we can say, okay, the deal is off. So it's the powerless in the sense of the IRGC they're not in a strong enough position in their own country to do a deal, to accept a deal, but they know they can sabotage a deal. And that's exactly what they did on October 7th, when they knew that Israel was close to having a peace agreement with Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords. So what did they do? What did Iran do? Sabotage the deal. I think that's what they're doing now. And I'm not sure how you get out of this.
No, but everybody knows. Everybody knows that, I mean, Iran probably, the gangs in Iran, the IRGC in Iran probably told Hezbollah to do it. That's why nobody's getting excited, because it's, how do you call it? Routine for them to do that. And Israel has to do what Israel has to do.
Yeah, and the question then is, does that scupper whatever negotiations we're going to have going forward? Does it scupper?
Oh, only for the weekend, Casey. They want to take the weekend off.
For the weekend. I think they want to take the weekend off. But, President Trump's he's ultimately going to prevail But he's got this time frame and potential economic chaos if the Strait of Hormuz and oil doesn't flow. And so I think that part of the negotiation was that the Gulf Arabs said to him, look, you could do a big military operation, but Iran will retain some kind of ability to destroy our energy infrastructure, creating not only economic problems for the Gulf Arabs, but a worldwide recession. So my guess is that Trump is buying time. He's got a deal. The Strait will be open. Prices will go down, John, as you predicted. Prices of oil and of gasoline would go down very quickly, and they have already started going down. President Trump goes into an election, and then after the election, where he hopefully does very well and his party retains the House and the Senate, then President Trump, then there's nothing holding him back to punish Iran.
And they won't dare do something to one of those ships going through because he knows that Trump will go back quadruple coupons.
Yeah, and we'll have every right to do it, and the world will be behind him if he does it.
Yes. And Judge Weinberg, or we have George Venizelos, the former head of the FBI in New York for 4 years, too. I mean, you guys have something to say?
KT, good morning.
Good morning, Judge.
So it seems to me it's very simple. It's a question of when you do it. You want to solve the Hezbollah problem, you take out Hezbollah. If you take out Hezbollah problem, you've taken out the last link for Iran, their protective device. That's why they're in Lebanon, as you know, in the first place. This is not an indigenous movement. This was an invasion by Iran, putting their people into a sovereign state, undermining that nation, Lebanon. The Lebanese people don't want them there. The government doesn't want them there. Hezbollah has to be taken out. If Hezbollah is taken out, then Iran has no ability to hit using their proxies. Do you agree or disagree on that?
Yeah, I do. I think it's all a matter of timing.
Exactly.
What I don't understand is why Israel never went in big and destroyed Hezbollah when they had the chance. The tit for tat stuff, that's what's happening now. But why didn't Israel go in the same way?
What historical? That's an excellent question. So what historical point in time are you talking about? You're talking about when the Biden people told them to restrain themselves and don't escalate it? Is that the time you're talking about? You're talking about earlier?
Or last year.
Well, last year.
I think in the last year, when they destroyed Hamas.
Look, the answer is I don't know what the understandings are between the governments of Israel and the United States, what to do, when to do it. Right. But the answer is you have to get rid of Hezbollah. They're absolutely essential. You have to restore that integrity of that nation. You have to give Lebanon back to the people of Lebanon, not to the people who are actually the colonialists, who are the Iranians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, Hezbollah is a foreign power occupying a sovereign nation. And you're right. Lebanon, the people want Hezbollah out. The government of Lebanon wants Hezbollah out. Israel wants Hezbollah out. Everybody wants Hezbollah out, and I think ultimately Hezbollah gets out or is taken out. But the matter will be one of timing, and I just don't think the president has I just don't think he has the time right now to deal with the one last remaining part of the Iranian threat.
KT, how many of them are there in Lebanon? How many Hezbollah do you think there are?
Oh, okay, so somebody explained this to me, a Lebanese American, but who grew up in Lebanon, his family is still in Lebanon. He said, here's the problem, that one house in the neighborhood is Lebanese, maybe Lebanese Christian. Then next door is another Lebanese family, Lebanese Muslim. And then next door to that, including some of the people who probably married the relatives of those other two groups that are in the same neighborhood, is Hezbollah. And so Hezbollah is so sort of interwoven with the Lebanese society that the Lebanese government and the Lebanese people have just said, okay, well, we don't like it. We'd like to get rid of him, but, he's married to my cousin, or his cousin is part of Hezbollah, but he's maybe not a big part of Hezbollah. They all know. The Lebanese all know who Hezbollah is and where they are, but they're so interwoven with their own families and their own sort of neighborhoods that they haven't gone after them internally. In other words, the Lebanese government, whatever.
In other words, they married each other.
They all married each other, yeah.
Oh, but that's all, KT. But that's always been the game plan of the Islamists, going back to the forming of the Brotherhood, the Muslim Brotherhood, which is to infiltrate the country and undermine from within.
Yes, and they've done it very successfully. except now the tide is coming back. I think President Trump is going to deal with all this stuff, but he needs to win these elections. And everyone assumes that look, he's done everything else. He's done great. The economy was humming. He took the side detour to deal with Iran's nukes, which I think he had to deal with. But now he's got to figure out what is the art of the possible. When Kissinger was negotiating in 1973 with the North Vietnamese, it was what do you get a whole? Do you wait and negotiate and get a whole loaf, or do you just take half a loaf and then figure you'll go back and get the other half? I think that's what President Trump's concluding, is that I'll take what I can get now, knowing full well I'm leaving the Armada there. My actions are going to bring down oil prices so that Iran isn't going to have the kind of income, even if they are allowed to sell oil again. The assets will be unfrozen, but we know we can see the money moving now. We couldn't watch money moving a year ago, 6 months ago, but because of the cooperation between the Gulf Arab country banks and the U.S. Treasury, we can see where large bags of money are going. So, for example, the Ayatollahs promised Hezbollah, okay, we're going to start funding you again just in a few days. Hang on. We'll be able to see when that money moves. And what can we do? Well, we can reimpose the sanctions. I don't think this is not going to be a smooth glide path. It's going to be up and down. And, as John said, wait for the weekend, wait for Monday. It's going to go up and down, but the general direction of the economy, the U.S. economy, and particularly the gasoline prices at the tank are going to come. The prices will come down. The economy will improve. Hopefully that gives President Trump what he needs to prevail in the elections, and then the Godfather will settle all scores.
You're absolutely right. Well, KT, thank you for coming on this Juneteenth morning.
Oh, my gosh, I didn't even know, John.
The stock market is closed.
The bank is closed.
We can't make any money in the stock market today. And the oil markets are open, so they're just fluctuating a little bit. Yesterday it was 74. Today it's 76. So it's fluctuations. Yep. Thank you so much.
Can you believe?
Yes.
A month ago, we were talking about oil being over $120 a barrel, and here we are.
If you listen to Goldman Sachs, it's going to be $200.
Yeah, yeah, that's a bad bet.
That was a very
That's what they're saying publicly.
We listened to John Catsimatidis.
Yeah, that's what Goldman is saying publicly.
Like I said to Maria Bartiromo this morning, I'm more right than wrong.
KT, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
you so much. We'll be right back with more. Again, plenty to talk about. I hope that you know that you don't have to go to work today, hopefully.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Roger Stone, if you were here, I know you would have brought an assortment, but Roger, we're talking about a bunch of things, but I thought, I think for you, the best topic right now is the socialist takeover of the Democrat Party, and we're seeing it up close here in New York, but you see it all over the country, don't you?
Well, first of all, let me say that I heard Greg Kelly's got a side gig going hanging meat there in the 77 WABC studio. But, it gives him a chance to wear those heavier jackets that he prefers. So anyway, he is, as you know, for many years on my international best dressed list. The Democrat Party is even more screwed up than the Republican Party today. The term moderate Democrat, that's an oxymoron. And yesterday was particularly entertaining to watch the dedication of the Barack Obama Presidential Library, which, as you know, Jake, was meant to be a great economic engine and a great monument to DEI policies. Turns out they stiffed all of the black tradesmen, skilled laborers, construction companies, and all the folks that built the place. They're now settled. They're begging to settle for pennies on the dollar. It's kind of it's a symbol, I guess, of the larger bankruptcy of the Democrat Party.
Judge Weinberg, you had an interesting statistic you were just telling us during the break about how many people in each party still love America.
Good morning, Roger. And this comes from CNN. CNN said in 2001, you had 90% of Republicans loved America, and 80% of the Democrats did. Today, It's 25 years later, you have 90% of the Republicans still love America. Only 29% of the Democrats do. And that's an awful, awful statistic. What are your thoughts, Roger?
I remember growing up, John Kennedy was president. My parents spoke of Harry Truman, who they kind of liked since they were Republicans. But both parties believed in capitalism. Both parties believed in free enterprise. Both parties believed in the flag. Both parties believed in a strong national defense. I'm thinking about Democrats like Henry Scoop Jackson, Daniel Patrick Moynihan. These guys weren't radicals. They may have been liberals, but they still loved America and they loved the fundamentals of the country. That kind of Democrat exists nowhere in the country. And to the extent that you have professional politicians like Gavin Newsom or J.D. Pritzker, they have to kowtow to the radical left. They have to move over there to have any chance of upward mobility within their party. It's hard to recognize today's Democrat Party. It's not the Democrat Party of your grandfather. That's for sure.
The big mistake, in my opinion, was when they allowed Bernie Sanders to run against Hillary Clinton in the presidential sweepstakes. He's never been a Democrat. He was always a socialist or a so-called independent. They allowed him in. They legitimized him. They should have kept him out entirely because he was never, just because he caucused with the Democrats in the Senate, there's no reason to let him go into the presidential sweepstakes. Your thoughts?
Judge, they had to cheat, and they had to cheat to stop him from winning.
Exactly.
They had to rig the rules so that he didn't get nominated. So here's a guy who's not even a Democrat the year before, becomes a Democrat for purposes of pursuing the nomination. Hillary Clinton, who had much deeper roots in the party and the experience of her husband's 2 presidential campaigns, she had to bend the rules and cheat to beat him. Fast forward to Robert Kennedy Jr. tries to challenge Joe Biden. They canceled the Iowa caucuses. They canceled the New Hampshire primary. They never even give the guys a Kennedy, for God's sakes. That's party royalty. They never give him a shot. No, the Democrat Party is rigged as well as out of the mainstream. How they expect to win a national election, I really don't know.
Well, we have a crime situation, Roger, your expertise on the Nixon campaigns and how law and order became so central to Nixon's 68 campaign. And now you have Democrats all over the country, especially here in New York, boasting about how they want to empty the prisons, defund the police. But this is more than just a slogan. I mean, they're really doing it, and they're fighting law and order. This is a big part of their fight against ICE. It's not just about open borders. It's about the fact they want these people who should be in prison to be free on the streets. How is this possibly polling well, even among the radical voters? I don't even understand how anyone could vote for this.
Now you combine that with their advocacy for transgenderism, which is completely and totally different than questions regarding, gays and lesbians. This is a completely different issue that appeals to maybe 3% of the populace. Between their soft on crime policies, their high tax policies, and this manic advocacy of the use of taxpayer dollars to transgender our children, I just don't see where they think there's a constituency, certainly among old-time Democrats, working-class Democrats. I don't see where they believe there's a constituency for those things.
Do they care? I mean, maybe that's the thing. Maybe they know, after what we've seen in Los Angeles and also in the statewide election in California, maybe they don't think they need to cater to the voters anymore because they can steal elections, at least in these blue states and cities.
Why do you think they want to abolish the Electoral College? Because they think that the consolidation of power in the cities will get them the popular vote. Mm-hmm. So you'll have a few states that will govern the future of the country, and everybody else is included out, as Samuel Goldwyn would have said.
Exactly right. And it puts a premium on stealing.
Exactly.
It puts an absolute premium in the urban areas. So maybe that's their thinking, that we don't have to put forward common sense or even palatable policies because we're not going to get an honest count. If you watch the situation in Los Angeles, It's extraordinary. And I've talked in the last couple of days and this weekend on my show, I'm going to talk to a mathematician. The fact that the woman who was a city council member, who was running third all night, who conceded on election night, now suddenly, after the polls closed, the day after the election, we found several 100,000 new ballots and 85% of them are for her. Who could possibly believe this nonsense?
We have that tape when I interviewed the Attorney General of Los Angeles. And maybe if we have time, we'll play it in the 9 o'clock hour.
Yeah, we should.
The U.S. Attorney.
The U.S. Attorney, right. But Roger Stone, it's Juneteenth, and you alluded to it a little bit before, and how the symbolism of the fact that this Obama library was built by so many minority-owned, black-owned businesses who have been stiffed, still haven't paid. I actually heard from one who is $4 million in the red, a small company. He can't recover from that. And, this Democrat socialism, this radical Democrat anti-law and order thing, black people are 12 times more likely to be victims of crime than white people. And the black voters want law and order more than anyone. And this is their choice. I got to vote for someone like Darlisa Chevalier in New York or Mamdani, these people who are going to unleash these thugs back into their neighborhoods to attack them. They're not going to go to Park Avenue, Roger. They're not going to Fifth Avenue. They're attacking them in Harlem and Bed-Stuy.
That's why you saw incremental but still meaningful increases among African-American voters for Donald Trump in the last presidential election. We hit all-time highs. Now, you can say, okay, so you got, take your pick, 21, 23% of the vote. It's a big difference between 15 and 23. Enough to swing a state like Michigan, enough to swing a state like Wisconsin, enough to swing a state like Pennsylvania. I think that's going to continue as you have a more prosperous, more upwardly mobile black middle class. They have the same desires as all Americans. They want good schools, they want safe neighborhoods, they want job opportunities, they want low food prices, they want low gas prices. They're not different than anyone else. And the Democrats have always continued to treat them as a constituency who would vote for them no matter what they ever did for them, which was by and large pretty much nothing.
George Venizelos, what do you have to say?
Another part of the formula they figured out is they put in these radical DAs in these big cities to help their cause and be soft on crime. I mean, it's killing New York, it's killing L.A., it's killing Chicago, Philadelphia. These DAs are awful, and they're the ones responsible for taking care of the street crime, the district attorneys. And that's, they figured that out, and it's scary what's happening. They're destroying our cities, our big cities, and just for their cause to show that democracy doesn't work.
Well, this was a developed plan. This is not coincidental. Yeah. They knew exactly what they were doing. They understood it was easier to win a local DA's race than win a whole city council or a whole state legislature. So they did it step by step by step.
Step by step by step. They did it. I remember they did it in Philadelphia. They did it step by step. And every time a regular Democrat would object to what's going on, they all went in and attacked that person.
And I forget his name right now, but you had
the guy in Westchester. What was his name?
No, Albany. The DA, DA of Albany opposed all these get out of jail free so-called reform. And they beat him in the primary. Yeah. They beat him in the primary. Oh, by the way, the money that, Roger, I want to get your thoughts on this. The money that's moving, for example, in these races in New York State for the congressional races, it's overwhelmingly something like 70 or 80% of the money that's funding these races is coming out of state. What are your thoughts about that?
Jake and I talked about this last night, as a matter of fact, on the Stone Zone. You got foreign money, or at least illegal money, flooding into these races through the Payment Processor Act Blue. These aren't even contributions from real people. Or if they are, the contributions didn't come from the people who are listed in the reports as having given them. So, for example, Marco Rubio runs for re-election to the Senate in the last cycle in Florida. He works very hard. He raises $10 million for his reelection, which is, for an incumbent senator, pretty good. But Val Demings, a black congresswoman from Orlando who no one has ever heard of, she brings in $26 million, of which 86% of it came through Act Blue in multiple small contributions.
It's a scam.
Does anyone in their right mind really believe that that's even possible? And then, of course, when journalists like James O'Keefe and others go knock on the doors of these putative donors, they have no idea what you're talking about. They didn't give any money.
I'll tell you something, Roger. I'm going to give you a feeling I have. The Biden administration taking oil money up to $100 a barrel. That oil money gets recycled and into those races. And it's a cost of doing business. In other words, if they can make an extra $1 billion in oil money, they'll spend $100 million in politics.
And launder it through Act Blue. Roger Stone, thank you so much for joining us. We got to take a break.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again in the Stone Zone and also on your weekend show. Thank you.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
On the line with us right now is my former congressman. You were briefly my congressman before all the redistricting. Peter King. Congressman, we've been talking a lot about the socialist takeover of the Democrat Party. This is no longer the old Democrat Party. And Judge Weinberg came out with that incredible stat. Only, 20% or something like that? 29% of Democrats now say they love this country. And that's relatively new because 25 years ago, it was 80%. How many of the actual voters do you think realize that it's no longer the old right and left anymore, that the Democratic Party now has just moved so far to the left? I mean, I don't know if the voters get it. We get it, but I don't know if they see it yet. When will they see it?
Well, first of all, Jake, thanks for the intro, and I hope you voted for me when you lived in my district. But that's several years ago.
Vote often.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Early and often, right.
Yes.
I agree totally with Judge Weinberg on this. The Democratic Party, it was slowly building up this anti-American feeling, and then it just seemed to explode all of a sudden. It's dramatic. I mean, whoever would have thought the party of Joe Lieberman, Ed Koch, John Kennedy, Hugh Carey, even down the list of Democrats of Bill Clinton who would have been part of this whole movement, which is anti-American. And also, and I think the Judge and I have discussed this several times, the anti-Israel in many ways is a cover for being anti-American because Israel stands for so many of the same values that we do: strong defense, anti-communist, anti-left-wing, free enterprise, freedom of religion, all of these principles, and also being the only democracy in the Middle East. So they're a target. And that, to me, is almost everyone you see who is out there in those anti-quote-unquote Zionist rallies, the pro-Hamas rallies, are also anti-American. So we have to keep that in mind as we go forward. But no, what's happening in the Democratic Party, I don't think the average, you talk to the average, say, Democrat in their 50s and 60s who grew up and they come from an ethnic family in New York. Their parents and grandparents were Democrats, and sometimes they voted Democrat, sometimes they voted Republican. But they thought both parties were basically either slightly center-left or center-right, but basically within the American mainstream. I think they would be shocked, and I just wish we can get that message out to them as to how far left they've gone. Anti-cop, anti-military, anti-basically American values and American traditions. And listen, during the worst days, you could have had Joe Biden, you could have Bill de Blasio, you could have anyone in office, and I would never say I'm not proud of my country. I mean, the United States stands above all, it exceeds its elected officials and politicians.
Peter.
That's what it stands for. So I can never, ever say that I'm not 100% pro-American.
Peter, don't agree with him too strongly. Now, we don't want to pump him up too much. He's a Democrat, don't forget. So.
That's right. You're right, George. Maybe he's a secret enemy among us. That's probably it.
Yeah, so he should know about the party. He is the party.
That's what I am the party. Now, Peter, as you and I have talked about, I'm I'm the last. David Pass and I are the last of the living moderate, common sense Democrats. You know, the old line that Reagan had, which was, "I didn't leave my party left me." Just imagine what he was responding to is compared to what's really happening today, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, that, again, in the days of Reagan, the Democratic Party, to the extent it went left, it was left within the American spectrum. It was still fighting for America. It just had a different way of doing it sometimes. But there was never an anti-American feeling. Now, during Vietnam, you saw some of the flag burners and all that, but they were fringe. They were off way over on the left. Now, that fringe is taking over the Democratic Party.
Isn't it true, too, Peter, isn't it true that the mayor and most of the Democratic Party are big Mets fans, not Yankee fans? So,
let's not get into that now,
Congressman King, you were talking about how the anti-Israel stuff is really it's absolutely a testing ground. They try that out first when they're really anti-American. And we're asking ourselves, how do they get away with it? And the answer, I think one of the answers is they go to these old school Democrats and they just portray themselves as being an anti-Trump party. And sadly, a lot of those old school Democrats are down with that. They're fine with that. And then it helps to shield everything else. So just like the anti-Israel stuff shields their anti-Americanism, they come out with an anti-Trump message, and suddenly a bunch of Democrats who would, if they heard anything else in their platform, would be shocked, knee-jerk, I'll vote for them. I mean, that's how Mamdani won. I think a lot of people...
What about the support for... Peter, what about the support for this character in Maine, Plattner, running against a great United States senator, a common-sense, bipartisan senator, a leader of the Senate, who you know well, Susan Collins? How do you support a guy like Plattner who has everything against him, and yet all the Democrats are rallying behind him?
You mentioned Susan Collins. My dealings with her, when I was chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, she and Joe Lieberman ran the Senate Homeland Security Committee. What a pleasure it was to work with them. The two of them, Democrat, Republican, standing for Homeland Security. They were great, totally pro-American. They had slightly different views on different issues, but overall, totally pro-American. Now, the
Peter
fact that
King.
they would accept them, yes.
Tell him the story about your sidekick from the Democratic Party when he used to leave the intelligence meeting and the Homeland Security meeting.
Now the United States Senator from California.
Oh, you're talking about Adam Schiff, yeah.
Yes.
That's, you can't get into what's discussed in the intelligence committee. Having said that, there's one example. It's been out there now. He would hear something and take it out of context and go up, and next thing you know, it's on CNN. Supposedly top secret. The example I always use is Hope Hicks, who was a top aide to President Trump before he was president. And she's there, and there's like 3 hours of testimony when they were trying to show the connection with Russia, which was total fraud. And so Adam Schiff being very that was Swalwell asked the question, I think, and Schiff was the one who leaked it. Swalwell says to Hope Hicks, "Does President Trump ever tell you to lie?" Now, I give Hope Hicks credit. She knew where they were coming from. And she said, well, only if you want to call it like a white lie. Like if somebody calls you want to talk to, you say, tell him I'll call him back later. And that was it. She said, but other than that, nothing ever important, nothing ever that affected anybody. Next thing you know, CNN is reporting top Trump aide admits she's told to lie under oath. So it was a bad story on CNN. And the thing is, we're not allowed to discuss anything we hear in the Intelligence Committee. And here, within 15 minutes, it's all over national television. So remember, that was Swalwell asking the question, and Schiff was the guy that was talking about it. And between the two of them and others on that committee, that was, again, they were... It's one thing if they really thought there was something serious to those allegations, but that was just an attempt to bring down the President of the United States. And that was, when they talk about a coup, that was the real first attempted coup here in the United States. It was when Democrats, prominent Democrats, and also people like Jim Comey and John Brennan and others in that foreign policy intelligence establishment knew what they were saying was totally untrue. Listen, was Russia involved in the election? They were involved in every election. It didn't matter. It had no impact at all. The Trump people were not dealing with Russia. In fact, one example I always use is right after the election, the big expose in the New York Times was that Russia was making phone calls into Trump Tower. Yeah, they were, because they didn't know who to deal with. The election was over. They had no contact with the Trump team. So they were actually calling into Trump Tower to say who do we deal with in the Russian in the Trump administration, and so that, to me, that proved there was no connection. Instead, they tried to show, listen, if Russia is trying to do espionage, they're not going to call Trump Tower and say who do we talk to in the administration. I mean, that just showed again how misleading that all was, and national media went along with it, and it was really a disgrace the way that was carried out. But also getting back, George, I mean, you would. Again, you're talking about people in the Democratic Party, how they've gone off. And I think that puts more of a burden on us, those of us who are Republican or conservative or certainly love America. We have to be careful in how we get our message out there. So we can't give the opposition things they can use and distort against us. Now, they're going to do it anyway, but we shouldn't give them the ammunition to use against us. We have an extra burden to live up to, unfortunately.
Peter King, I don't know if you're going to laugh or cry, but you just talked about the Russia collusion hoax. Here's Barack Obama yesterday talking about how he believes in the peaceful transfer of power. Listen to this hypocrisy.
A belief in the peaceful transfer of power after the people have spoken in fair and free elections, recognizing that in a large, complicated society like ours, no group or faction gets its way 100% of the time.
Yeah, and then he convened people in the White House after the Trump victory to push up the Clinton plan.
The setup. Right, in the Oval Office with Brennan and the others, and he also was putting out these like mysterious things. I want all records frozen, everything kept. I want all the evidence of collusion. And he knew there was nothing there. They knew there was nothing there. And and again, this is the frustration in the way of being on the Intelligence Committee. You listen to these guys, you listen to Brennan, you listen to Comey, and you realize there was nothing behind it. But you couldn't really go out and say that. I mean, Comey would basically say, "Oh, when I saw what I saw, I couldn't believe it. We had to do this, we had to do that." And then the more you listen to him, there was nothing there. But again, that's not the way the media reported it. And now that to me was a dark moment in American history, and Barack Obama was behind it.
Yeah. Well, Peter King, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Congressman.
On this free day. If you woke up this morning and didn't know it was a federal holiday, now you know, and you'll get better parking today.
Let me just say one thing. In agreement with George, I have to watch myself getting suckered into agreeing with Judge Weinberg so much.
Yeah, really.
Those Brooklyn Democrats from the Jockey Club, those guys, you really can't trust them. So.
Peter, you and I grew up in the same world at the same time.
That's true. You're right. That's true. And some people say we never grew up, but that's another story.
True, too.
That's a good thing.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, guys.
Have a great weekend, Peter.
All right, we're going to be right back here.
Bye.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All eyes on California, especially as we're waiting to see the results in the governor's race, in the LA mayor's race. And our next guest has some blockbuster details about how first-time voters can actually register in California. It's going to blow your mind. And joining us now is the U.S. Attorney there in California, Bill Assaili. Bill, it's so great to have you here on the show. Walk us through, because we understand what California is blocking you. You're trying to do an audit. But this is mind-blowing, how people can register first-time voters there in California.
Yeah, no, the voter rolls are so important because if you have dirty, filthy voter rolls, you're going to have dirty elections. And so this is something I'm really familiar with as a former legislator in California before I was appointed to my current position by the president. So let's start with registering to vote. California pretty much lets anyone register to vote. You can do it online. They sign people up at the DMV. And if you don't have a driver's license or a social, they say, no problem, just show us some form of ID. And there's a list of what they consider acceptable ID. And among that list is gym memberships, prescription drug label. You've got insurance cards. And yes, they give insurance to illegal immigrants in California. You've got all these ridiculous things that do not prove that you are an eligible United States citizen who can vote in an election. So that's step one.
So the problem is you can't get an honest count in California the way it is now.
You don't even know that the people on the voter roll are eligible to vote because they just let anyone register, basically, and that's not an appropriate form of ID. Then you add on top of that, they don't maintain the voter rolls in California. They do not clean up the voter rolls in a regular manner to get dead people off quickly, people who've moved, people who are felons. These are people who are not eligible to vote,
they need to be removed quickly. So they're not maintaining.
So what's going to happen
rules.
with the election? With the governor's election and the mayor's election?
Well, that's a great question. We're doing our job. Our job is to investigate violations of federal law. And we've already brought one case just about a month ago where an individual caught undercover by James O'Keefe was registering homeless people to vote using fake information and paying them to do so. That person has pled guilty. We have other investigations ongoing on election fraud. But what I'm talking to you about is the system. They've basically, in the state of California, they've decriminalized election fraud with the way they register voters. And then you have to understand what else goes with that. Ballot harvesting. So they let anyone register. They don't clean the rolls. Then they've legalized ballot harvesting, which is illegal in most states. It is illegal in most states for another person to handle someone else's ballot. Not true in California. Anybody can go collect ballots from anybody. So you can be walking around with 100 ballots in your trunk and nothing to see here. Totally legal in the state of California. So you have the ballot harvesters out there collecting. No chain of custody, no record keeping. We have no idea who's doing it. They just drop it in the mailboxes. And then we don't have voter ID. So you put all that together, it's a recipe for fraud. So yes, will we be charging people with fraud? Yes, we will. Is it going to be enough to change the outcome of anything? Probably not. That's why we want to audit the voter rolls. And that's why we've sued the state of California under various federal statutes that say we should have access to that.
Don't we have to get it to the Supreme Court ASAP?
We're on our way. We're in the Ninth Circuit right now. So it's at the Court of Appeals. As you know, these things kind of have to work their way up. But right now we have to work within the system that Congress has laid out. So until something changes, we're doing everything we can at the Department of Justice to force the state of California to hand over their voter rolls so we can audit them and make sure only U.S. citizens are voting. But I have to tell you that the way the statutes are written don't make it easy.
Wow. Judge Weinberg.
It's good to talk to you, Mr. U.S. Attorney. I'll tell you, I have a problem with the fact that unsolicited, they mail out millions and millions and millions of absentee ballots. How do you have an integrity system when you're mailing out absentee ballots when they're unrequested?
It's a big problem. These are changes they've made to our election system over the last decade. It didn't all happen at once, but every year they water down the integrity. And what you're saying is extremely important. So if you have dirty voter rolls and then you add universal vote by mail, meaning anyone who's registered to vote, dead or alive, is going to get a ballot in the mail, you now have millions of ballots floating out in the universe. You have no idea who's receiving the ballot. You have no idea who's completing it. You have no idea who's submitting it. And so by the time the ballots have arrived at the ROV, at the Registrar of Voters, it's almost impossible to go back and trace exactly where this ballot came from and who handled it or whatnot. So we have individual cases that we pursue, but it's a big problem. That's why I said this is a fraudster's paradise.
Which is exactly why former President Carter and former Secretary of State Baker, in their commission, in their report, were explicit in saying that these absentee ballot formulas that are being used, for example, by states like California, are a recipe for disaster and election fraud.
Well, the Congress gives a lot of latitude to states to regulate their elections, but Congress has a role too. And so until somebody reins them in, California's free to do what they want, and they're exactly doing that. They're taking advantage of this, and it works to their advantage, and who's going to stop them?
So let me ask you, Mr. U.S. Attorney, how long could this process take? I commend you for raising the red flag about this and explaining to everybody what's going on, but how long could it take through the legal system?
The legal system is not, it does not move quickly. We've been litigating for the better part of a year. So we've made our way through the district courts, and then we've appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and we argued that a few weeks ago, and so we're waiting on the court to render an opinion, and it takes a various amount of times for however long they want to do that. So it's not the fastest process, which is why I think there's an effort to change the laws in Congress. You'll have to talk to members of Congress about that. And something positive that's going on in California, I understand, is that there might be a ballot initiative on the ballot in November to put in some voter ID requirements. So, there's some things in play. I don't know how quickly any of that will come about.
Well, you got to come back on again soon. It was really great to have you here. Thank you. Such an interesting.
We thank you very much for giving us the legitimate answers out of California.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
having me.
much.
Take care.
And we're back live now. And, John, this absolute horrific thing that happened in California. I mean, the whole country could see it. It's so embarrassing.
But
maybe it'll be worth it.
It goes on and on and on.
Yeah, but maybe it'll be worth it if this is the thing that gets the ball rolling on people understanding how in these blue states and cities
George
there's stuff in the ballot
Venizelos,
box.
what did they used to say in the old FBI movies? Somebody has to go to jail.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if nobody goes to jail, it's going to keep going on.
Yeah.
Well, what if it's just some low-level ballot harvester who went into Skid Row? It's got to be something bigger than that, right?
It's got to be somebody paid him to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a disgrace. I mean, anybody can tell you. I let people say, well, there's no evidence. If someone is running a distant third on election night and for days afterwards, and then suddenly one neighbor...
For a week afterwards,
Yes.
you're still counting votes.
The country can't want this.
But the system in California is set up for that. The Democratic Party, who control the legislature and the governor's mansion, deliberately set up a system that allows for it. They set up the dynamics to make it possible.
And passed a law that barred the feds from seeing the documentation of that. Now, that won't hold up if that goes to the Supreme Court.
I agree with that.
But that won't hold up.
But in the meantime, they fixed the election in L.A.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, this is our second largest city. It's an important financial. It's not just an entertainment town. But there's oil businesses there, by the way. There's other. I mean, this is a huge city, and they stole an election. And I mean, the stealing of elections. You know, they call themselves the Democratic Party. They ought to try democracy. Abigail Spanberger, just 2 days ago, the radical governor, new Democrat governor of Virginia, signed a bill, which also won't hold up to Supreme Court challenge, that says that Virginia now, no matter how the voters vote in Virginia, the Electoral College votes of Virginia will go to whoever won the popular vote. I mean, how often do you have a governor disenfranchising her own voters and smiling about it? It's incredible.
Well, and she's the one who ran as a moderate. She and the governor of New Jersey both won in the off-year election. They ran as moderates and they governed as radical leftists.
So, George Venizelos and Judge Weinberg, we all agree that the Supreme Court's going to throw that out. But do we think that there's going to be some federal judges that will uphold this disenfranchisement? I mean,
in the early rounds, depends who appoints. I hate to say it, depends who appointed them.
None of the federal judges have ever been impeached or removed.
Not since Alcee Hastings.
Until that happens, they go their merry way and they do whatever they want. I mean, I don't know how else do I say it?
What happened to Hastings after he was removed from the federal bench? He became a congressman from Florida.
Yeah, he ended up being colleagues with the people who voted him out. Yeah,
no,
George.
It poisons our democracy. It poisons our system because people who the people really want aren't getting elected. You know, you're getting these radical people elected, and I don't think, and they're doing it illegally.
You know, I draw a lot of parallels to what's going on in America now to the bleeding Kansas stage of American history before the Civil War. Violence between different groups. We've seen that already, although I think almost all the violence is coming from the left. But what people forget about the bleeding Kansas era is there was also a lot of ballot box stuffing back then. And it led a lot of people to say, well, I wasn't in favor of any of this violence before, but if my vote's not going to account, I'm going to pick up a pitchfork or a musket and start shooting my neighbor.
It's like anything, any crime. If you don't have people pay for the crime, there's no deterrent. So there has to be some cases made on this stuff. It's important to the existence of this country. You know, our basic system is our voting system.
And U.S. attorneys like Bilal Asai, who you just heard, who sounds like a very capable young man, by the way. And by the way, he's a quintessential American California story. Son of Lebanese immigrants, went to Cal State Poly, then went to Chapman. I mean, he's all California. Memo to all you young U.S. attorneys. You want to become the next Rudy Giuliani, who made his bones knocking out the mob? How about becoming the U.S. attorney who gets our voter confidence back? That's a heck of a way to make your career.
You can't have a democracy unless you have belief that there's voter integrity.
Yeah, well,
you have to have integrity for the electoral process. Otherwise, people will abandon belief in the country.
This is a huge opportunity for a prosecutor out there who wants to make his or her name. And all power to you, because the country will be behind you. And you'll get yourself on this program. We'll put you on. We'll put you on Katz and Cosby. We'll put you on Sid and Friends, and you'll be a star. And this will be long after Trump is out of office. This will still be an issue that will be very, very a lightning rod.
I tell you, the country's starting to catch up to some of these third world countries that we all accuse of fixing elections. If we don't be careful and start stepping up, we're going to be one of those countries.
Well, and those are the countries like Qatar and Iran and China who are paying for this. This, you just said somebody paid for those people to go into Skid Row. We got to get that person in jail.
You think they woke up one morning and said, "I'm going to go collect ballots"?
Right.
I mean, somebody paid.
And some of us have been providing security too, right? They went into some rough neighborhoods. I'm sure there was that's probably where the real expense was. Paying the young college kid to harvest the ballots is one thing.
But it's even worse. In California, unsolicited, everybody gets mailed an absentee ballot. So that's a formula for corruption. And then the drop boxes that are unpoliced, and all of a sudden they come in with the boxes days and days after the election and counted. And then you have the courts that allow them to count it, even though they're not stamped by the post office, but they wrote in the date. I mean, really? And you expect people to believe in that system in California?
Well, I'd like to get your thoughts on this because what I always say about mail-in ballots, corruption or no corruption, mail-in ballots, everyone listen, mail-in ballots are not secret ballots.
Sid and Friends in the morning on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It is a federal holiday. Most people, I think, are still working today. It's too new a holiday. This is like the first few years of MLK Day.
And we got a surprise visitor coming, I understand.
Okay. We've got, in moments, we're going to be joined live in the studio by Jack Schlossberg, the grandson of President John F. Kennedy, and he's running for Congress.
On Tuesday.
Listen, Tuesday is a huge primary day, not only in New York, but for the whole country, because we've got some major... Now, obviously, Democrats are favored in all of these congressional elections in the New York City area, but it's a question, will it be old school Democrats like John F. Kennedy, the real John F. Kennedy, the president, or will it be people like this...
I'm looking forward to see what he has to say.
Yeah. I
listen, I don't know the kid from Adam other than I knew his mother, Carolyn, and let's see what he has to say.
Well, I want to ask him if he liked his grandfather's 1962 tax cut, which sent this country's economy soaring. As soon as...
Well, the one thing we always do at WABC, we're always civilized.
Yes, first of all, we're civilized.
Yeah.
But, interestingly... I'm loving the history here, and I'm doing these Freedom 250, the Decisions That Made America program here for all of our networks and all of our channels. And one of the major important moments in history for his grandfather was when his great-grandfather, Joseph P. Kennedy, had a stroke in December of 1961, and he could no longer speak after that, and he was no longer able to hector, bother, and call his son the president 17 times a day. And there's a decided difference in Kennedy's policies from the day after that stroke from the day before. He becomes a much more independent president. He makes more decisions for what he thinks is better for the country because his father isn't working him day after day after day. It's a very interesting
And that
moment.
was the actual, I didn't know that.
December
17 times a
19th,
day you would call?
He was calling, and he was yelling at him, and he was forcing him to do a bunch of things that he didn't want to do, and there were times where he made one compromise to get him off his back about other things. And to me, the greatest achievements of the Kennedy presidency all come after that, after he can't call him anymore. The 1962, well, ended up becoming a 63 tax cut.
What was his famous statement?
Joseph P. Kennedy or ask not what you can do for what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. I got it backwards, but I got.
Well, I got a different one.
You have a different one. Okay.
Yeah, I have. Let's see. Hold on. I wrote it down so I won't forget. All right. Ask not.
Yeah.
What a lobbyist could do for you, but what you could do for your country.
So you have lobbyists.
I mean, it's more important for what you could do for your country instead of paying attention to these lobbyists.
Or basically becoming a balkanized country. Gimme, gimme, gimme. I mean, but by the way, that's what happened to Europe, even before their migrant crisis. It all became about what they can get from the government. And candidates ran on handouts. And not just in small campaigns. These weren't like Senator potholes. These were prime ministers of Great Britain, chancellors of Germany, all running on policies of what they could hand out, not listening to the great lesson of John F. Kennedy, which was ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Doesn't mean you have to become someone who works for free and just volunteers all the time, but That's the discourse that we should be having in this country. And it'd be interesting to see what his grandson has to say about that. Yeah. Is it about that? Are you going to run on promising handouts to people, or are you going to run on people asking people to join together for the good of the country? I'm sure there's a way that that can be spun either way, but his father was a very, very staunch patriot, advocate for a strong military. We have the Navy SEALs because of JFK. By the way, something his father opposed, and once his father got out of the picture, he was able to push that. And, of course, he supported a major tax cut, which is one of my favorite policies of JFK, so we can talk about that a little bit.
I wonder if the doorman let him up.
Yeah, I know. Well, I hope so. There's less traffic today. He can't blame the traffic. We're looking at 3rd Avenue right now, and also some of the other streets, and it looks, on a weekday to see this kind of traffic I feel like I've died and gone to heaven. We've talked about a lot of things today here, filling in for Sid on Sid and Friends. It is Juneteenth, and whether we make jokes about it or not, and we really got to the bottom of the reasons for it with Governor David Patterson, but it is nice that there is something to mark the end of a horrible stain in American history. This is a bipartisan thing. You don't have to say slavery was not good for this country's soul, but it also wasn't good for its economy. It kept half the country in an agrarian economy, which is hard to grow. You can't get new wealth very easily in an agrarian economy, which is what slavery helped perpetuate. So let's celebrate that. Whether you're black or white, that's something that we can all celebrate. That's for sure. And I think wait, here we go. And here he is. Here's the man.
All right.
Jack Schlossberg is coming into our studio right now. The first question I have for him is, where did you go to high school?
Collegiate school.
Collegiate.
The best one.
Collegiate.
Oh, my son went to Loyola.
Oh, nice. Fantastic.
I was going to guess Trinity, but you said Collegiate. Okay.
Yeah, and I remember where you lived, because you used to shop at Christini's.
I still do. I live above a Christini's.
Yeah.
Best store in the city.
My God. And your opponent at the debate last week said he shopped at A&P. There hasn't been an A&P in 2-3 years or 5 years. What kind of opponent do you have?
I know. He literally said, Alex Borez said he shops at a A&P on 96. There isn't one.
Yeah, it hasn't been one there in 20 years or 10 years.
Well, he should check the expiration date on his milk if he did.
Yeah, exactly.
Jack, you're in a big primary on Tuesday. Tell us a little bit about, is it just in your genes that you have to go into politics?
Well, introduce him first,
yes,
in case somebody out there doesn't know.
This is Jack Schlossberg. He is running for Congress. And tell us which district it is and what part geographically of the city.
District 12, New York 12, which runs from 96th Street to 14th Street, all avenues east and west of Manhattan.
Wow. Okay. So that's a big, that's a lot of different, that's like 6 different worlds. For those of you who are listening, not from New York City and not from Manhattan, that might sound, it's 82 blocks of the same city. But that's like 35 different nationalities represented in
every
that
kind
area.
of person and the best kind of people in the whole world. This district it is home to the United Nations, to the Empire State Building, Central Park. The whole world starts counting time every year from New York 12 in Times Square. And so we really need leadership that can punch above its weight and get things done in Congress, because the Democratic Party needs a lot of help.
Tell us about, have you studied about all the things that your grandfather was stood for and everything?
Yeah, I have. And it all started, my studies of him started when a teacher in high school asked me a question on JFK's diplomatic policy in Laos, and I didn't know the answer. And I went home and started reading, a bunch of books about him and watching his speeches. But I've studied him very closely and worked closely on the Kennedy Library. And, his legacy is something that he's remembered as an icon now, but people forget he sent a man to the moon, drafted the Civil Rights Act, stared down Khrushchev and did not blink. He was a war hero and the youngest person ever elected president and the first Catholic.
Wow.
Jack Schlossberg joining us right now. Of course, his most famous quote is, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." And I'm sympathetic as I ask this question to you, because especially when you run for Congress, it's kind of hard to follow that paradigm, right? Today's politicians, even for much higher office, it seems like it's handout city. And how do you run for an office at a local level, even though that's for Congress, and not ignore what your grandfather said? How do you do it? Because it's all about, when am I going to get this? When am I going to get my free that? This is something that I think plagues anyone running for office.
Totally. people forget JFK was the ultimate outsider when he started and when he ran for president. And people might laugh hearing this coming from me because I'm, his grandson, but I'm the outsider in this race too. And the institutions here in New York 12 and New York City, they don't want to change. They have no new answers. They just tell people what they want to hear. I'm running against someone, Michael Asher, whose final closing argument to everybody was, I've got a plan so that everyone is guaranteed a job and a house. No one asks any follow-up questions. I think we got to start running our government more efficiently, more effectively, and come together because there's no reason we need to be so divided. It wasn't always this way. A huge reason: money in politics. This is something that I've been known for in the campaign. They call me No PAC Jack. I don't have a super PAC, and this race has been flooded with $30 million of outside spending, which, as a New Yorker, offends me. And as an American and a Democrat, I think we can do better than this.
$30 million just for one congressional race?
Can you believe that? I guess a lot of people want to buy real estate.
How many candidates are running in this district?
Only about 150,000. It's a split field. There's, I would say, 3 or 4 main contenders. Myself, Alex Borez, Michael Asher, and George Conway.
Well, I'm not a registered Democrat, but if I was a registered Democrat, I'd probably vote for you.
Oh, thanks, John. I appreciate
it. Jack Schlossberg, getting back to your grandfather here a little bit, and I don't want to make it all about that, but that's a segue to talk about something that's happening today. So I do want to talk about today. We've been talking for these last 4 hours about a radical socialist takeover of the Democratic Party. And if they were just being socialists all the time and focusing on the economic aspect of it, to me that would be more understandable. But it seems like they call themselves socialists, but they're really all I ever hear from them is anti-Israel rhetoric, anti-Semitic rhetoric. Since when did those two things become so easily conflated? This is outrageous to me. We have someone in the 13th district election, Daraliza Chevalier, who was at the pro-Hamas rally cheering the October 7th attacks on October 8th in 2023. That's another thing. You say you're fighting against the moneyed interest, but this is another major problem. This is something that would have horrified your grandfather. This is a cancer that needs to be cut out of the Democratic Party.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm very worried, about the upcoming fracturing of the Democratic Party, being dragged into the mud by what I consider to be, there are a lot of people who hear certain things from these candidates, socialist candidates, that they agree with, that we probably all agree with, that sound great. And then there are the other talking points that they lean into to pander to an audience that, you're right, is defined by their stance against Israel. Not what they're for, but against the state of Israel's existence in general. And I'm someone, I'm right in the sweet spot on the U.S.-Israel question in this race. I've made everybody mad at me. I'm very proud of that. I think we need to talk with nuance about this stuff and not lean into tropes. And the Democratic Party, a lot of this stuff seems like it's organic, crowdsourced. And I've seen in this campaign myself that a lot of this stuff is driven by rhetoric online. And a lot of that rhetoric online is actually paid for in terms of paid for social media content creation and bots. If you look at any posts that I've made in the last 2 months, most of it is filled with anti-Israel and a lot of anti-Semitic comments from what are clearly fake accounts paid for by one of the opponents. So look, I think this is a serious question. I don't want to cede the issue of the U.S.-Israel's relationship to the right either. And because we should be able to come together on this, used to be bipartisan. Doesn't mean we can't criticize Israel's government, but we got to get serious here because there's a lot of challenges facing our world, and we live in an increasingly hostile world with more and more conflict happening every day. We got to have a real strategy here, and the Democratic Party should not lose its credibility by embracing hate.
Well, I have an easier way out for you. Simply say that this is a conflict that doesn't really hit your daily life here on 92nd down to 14th Street as much. I mean, the idea that this has become the number one topic in a number of these elections is ludicrous. So let me get back to that. Let's get to 92nd down all the way down to 96 all the way down to 14th Street and talk about, listen, a lot of people ask people who are running for office, what's the first thing you're going to do? And what do you think the most important thing is? I'm going to ask a nuanced type of question. What's the first thing that you think you can do, that you think you actually can do?
Yes.
That will make an impact. That's a better question.
Deduct your rent from your taxes. I'm the only candidate who's ever put forward this proposal. I think renters should be treated the same as those who borrow against their homes, who can deduct their mortgage interest payment. We talk about housing nonstop in New York City. We talk about building new housing. Great.
Thanks for listening to Sid and Friends in the Morning. You can hear Sid and Friends in the Morning weekday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?